Chapter 5:14. Alright, I got it. The Lihen holy man replied plainly. Broken Sword had already been proven to be the traitor of the Celestial Vault sect. Hence, it was not strange for Tsing Hui to return to the top echelon. Holy man, there is something fishy about this matter. When Pak Hui returned to the top echelon, he used an avatar to descend to the Celestial Vault sect. Furthermore, it was the Celestial Vault sect who personally brought him to their courtyard. Broken Sword seemed to have thought of something as his expression changed. He actually used an avatar to descend to the Celestial Vault sect? Can't he just use the avatar from the Chaos Holy Hall to explain himself? What? The Lihen holy man also guessed something as his expression darkened. I hope it's not what we think. I don't want to miss out on the ultimate divine item. Broken Sword was also a little anxious. He faintly guessed that Tsing Hui purposely used an avatar to descend to the Celestial Vault sect to hand over the ultimate divine item. A man's wealth is his own ruin. In order to prevent himself from becoming the first target of the Lihen holy man, it was completely reasonable for Tsing Hui to hand over the ultimate divine item in exchange for some substantial benefits. However, if the ultimate divine item landed in the hands of the Celestial Vault sect, it would not be easy for them to keep the ultimate divine item for themselves. The plan to venture to the Zhongjin continent has to be put on hold. Broken Sword, you have operated in the Celestial Vault sect for many years. You should have one or two trustworthy people. Go and investigate immediately to see if the ultimate divine item has really landed in the hands of the Celestial Vault sect. Yes, Father. Furthermore, we have to start planning the trap to lure the Candle sect out. If the Celestial Vault sect obtains the ultimate divine item, the power of the Chaos Holy Hall will increase exponentially. The ultimate divine item in the hands of an ordinary person can allow him to become a rank 40 Son of Chaos in just a dozen years. Now that it's in the hands of the Celestial Vault sect, who knows what will happen? The War of Chaos only has a 70% chance of winning. I'm afraid it will be reduced to 60% or even 50%. If that's the case, the Way of the Heavens will have to change our strategy against the Celestial Vault sect. Change? Broken Sword was slightly startled. You're not going to decide the outcome through the War of Chaos? The Lihen holy man nodded his head. The powers of the heavenly axiom are obviously stronger than the celestial axiom. The reason why we chose the War of Chaos was to prevent too many losses. But now, the result of the War of Chaos could be a total collapse. In that case, we can only strike the celestial axiom and the other powers in the real world. The celestial axiom's biggest opponent is the Candle world. Hence, if you can really do this well and lure the Candle world into our trap, the heavenly axiom will give you more resources. It won't be difficult for you to return to the 28th or 29th level of chaos in a few decades. When Remnant Sword heard this, his eyes immediately lit up. Father, don't worry. I will definitely handle this matter properly. With my understanding of Zhu Zhao, the probability of him falling into our trap is more than 90%. Alright, I'll go and discuss the ambush of Zhu Zhao with the other Dao Masters. I hope you won't disappoint me. Remnant Sword agreed, but his hatred for Tsing Hui did not diminish. Then Tsing Hui, this guy, after taking care of the Candle world, the next one will naturally be him. Don't worry, my Lihen Heaven realm is with him. His whereabouts will always be under my control. When I take care of the Candle world and deal with him, it will be the time of his death. Father, you are indeed a genius. In the heavenly axiom, the Lihen holy man temporarily turned his attention to the Candle world. Tsing Hui did not know about this. At this moment, he had already returned from the celestial axiom and his original body was also in the Hidden Sword sect. The ambush of Remnant Sword this time has awakened me. Although the combination of the incarnation technique, transmission technique and backtracking technique is tyrannical, it is not unsolvable. No matter how powerful the ability is, as long as it is known and targeted, there will naturally be a way to deal with it. Just like the Lihen Heaven realm, with this thing, Remnant Sword almost turned me into a turtle in a jar. If I didn't happen to have a token of the realm of battle and used it to start a war with the chaos to deprive Remnant Sword of his chaos level, forcing him to escape immediately, I'm afraid that today, I'm afraid that I would be in danger. Tsing Hui glanced at his Son of Chaos interface. The number of Taoist aura in it had increased from the previous 57 to 198. The new 141 Taoist aura was obtained by the celestial axiom intermittently during this period of time from the lower and upper dust cleansing stones of the Kongli continent. Because the frequency of selling was relatively low, it took 2 years for them to be completely sold out. When Tsing Hui went to the celestial axiom handed them over to Tsing Hui. Of the 198 Taoist aura, 88 Taoist aura could not be used and would have to be repaid to the Hidden Sword Venerable. Only 110 Taoist aura could really be used. 110 Taoist aura was not a small number. It was not difficult to use it to raise 1 chaos level. Unfortunately, Tsing Hui wanted to condense the Supreme Golden Core and cultivate it to the point of evolving Supreme Divine Sense. The resources required were absolutely massive. Not to mention that he only had 110 Taoist aura. Even if this number was increased tenfold, it was still uncertain whether he could raise his gold core to the Supreme Divine Sense level and evolve Supreme Divine Sense level. Taoist aura. Tsing Hui's spiritual consciousness, which stayed in the Chaos Temple, changed and appeared in the Hunyuan Trade Union. Leader. My lord. Tsing Hui appeared in the Hunyuan Trade Union. Xen Long, Danding, and Madame Zhu Yu, who happened to be there, stood up at the same time and bowed respectfully. Tsing Hui glanced at Dan Taiying and immediately thought of Dan Taiyu, who had saved him once. Is your family doing well on Dragon-Slaying Island? Very good. Currently, your reputation in the Eastern Wasteland is like the sun in the sky. The 9 great saint sects all bow down to you. There is no one who has the courage to have any ideas about our Dragon-Slaying Island. In addition, Father and Uncle Wu have been stabilizing their realms recently. Some of the small forces on Dragon-Slaying Island that are ready to make trouble don't dare to act rashly. They are working for Dragon-Slaying Island wholeheartedly. When Dan Taiying heard Tsing Hui's question, he was flattered and replied, if you can come to Dragon-Slaying Island to take a look now, you will definitely be able to sense the changes inside and outside of Dragon-Slaying Island. Madame Zhu Yu also smiled and said, Dragon-Slaying Island has replaced Shaoyang Sea City as the largest island and trading hub in the eastern sea of the South China Sea. There are countless cultivators, caravans, and trading groups coming and going on the island. The number of spirit stones produced every year is more than 3 million. 3 million spirit stones. Tsing Hui nodded slightly. This number was already half of the resources allocated to the Sea Calming Hall by the Hunyuan Heaven sect when it was first established. At that time, the Sea Calming Hall was almost in charge of suppressing the South China Sea. However, the Hunyuan Heaven sect only allocated 3,000 spirit crystals every 10 years, which was 60 million spirit stones. Dragon-Slaying Island's annual profit was 3 million spirit stones, which was 30 million spirit stones in 10 years. It was equivalent to half of the resources owned by the Sea Calming Hall. However, 3 million spirit stones. It was not even enough to buy a level 5 divine weapon. Compared to Tsing Hui's current income, it was just a drop in the ocean. Naturally, he would not take it to heart. You're here this time. A caravan that crossed the sea has appeared on Dragon-Slaying Island. They're currently resting on Dragon-Slaying Island. I'm here to see if I can contact the important figures of the Chamber of Commerce. Since the Alliance leader is here, I'd like to ask how Dragon-Slaying Island should treat this caravan. A caravan that crossed the sea? Tsing Hui was slightly taken aback. Due to the war of the overseas beasts, the outer seas of the eastern wilderness could not be considered peaceful. As a result, not a single caravan passed by the eastern wilderness for decades. Many sects in the eastern wilderness had accumulated many valuable items, but they could not exchange them for anything that they were satisfied with. But now, the war of the overseas beasts had ended. It was reasonable for a caravan to cross the sea and enter the eastern wilderness. How powerful is that caravan? It's called the Oven Caravan. They're offering a level 6 divine weapon for 1 Dao aura. As for their strength, it's said that the person in charge of the caravan is a golden core expert. In addition, there are many eternal, transcendent, and true energy experts. They should be above us in the eastern wilderness. They're offering a level 6 divine weapon for 1 Dao aura. Xing Hui pondered for a moment. He did not have any impression of the oven caravan. He guessed that it was a nameless caravan. He then said, "The eastern wilderness is the territory of the Primordial trade caravan. If you want to exchange your items for cultivation resources, you can only do so with the Primordial trade caravan. At most, I'll allow Jianying to interfere. As for the others, the eastern wilderness does not welcome them. Give me a spiritual coordinate." "Yes, Alliance leader." Xing Hui asked about Dan Tyne and then turned to Xen Long. "Are there any missions with high returns recently?" "High returns. There's a war-related mission, but it's a little far away." As Xen Long spoke, he took out the list of missions. It's a mission from the Cloud Sea continent. The Shenming sect, the Howran sect, and the Sky Sword Alliance of the Cloud Sea continent are fighting for supremacy. They're all trying to become the overlord of the Cloud Sea continent. The war between the 3 sects has reached its climax. The mission is from the Howran sect, one of the 3 sections. The price is 100 Dao auras. Only 100 Dao auras? When Xing Hui heard this number, he frowned slightly. But now, he really needed Dao auras. If this mission was not too troublesome, he would not mind making a trip. "Tell me about the situation of the Cloud Sea continent." "Yes, the Cloud Sea continent is a medium-sized continent. The production of Dao auras is not very high. It seems to be less than half of what we have in the eastern wilderness. Among the medium-sized continents, it belongs to the lower middle level. However, the martial strength of this continent is not low. It's slightly stronger than our eastern wilderness. Among the 3 sects, there are 1 or 2 Golden Core Realm experts. The mission only requires you to help the Howran sect kill the Golden Core Realm experts of the other 2 sections. The only trouble is, the Cloud Sea continent is 43 million kilometers away from the Infinite Wasteland continent and 32 million kilometers away from our eastern wilderness." 43 million kilometers? Xing Hui pondered for a while. Considering that this mission was extremely simple and only required him to kill 2 or 3 Golden Core Realm experts, he immediately said, "Accept the mission. I'll deal with it when I have time." Chapter 5:15. After accepting the mission, Xing Hui did not carry it out immediately. The battle strength of a Golden Core Realm cultivator might be very troublesome for an ordinary Golden Core Realm cultivator. Even those who had cultivated a high-grade golden core did not dare to guarantee that they could successfully complete the task. After all, these Golden Core Realm cultivators were definitely the strongest cultivators of their respective sections. They would definitely have Never-Ending Realm, Transformative Realm, and True Energy Realm cultivators by their side. Once they were surrounded by so many Golden Core Realm cultivators, even those who had condensed a high-grade golden core would have to suffer under this kind of human wave tactic. Moreover, this mission was 43 million kilometers away from Tianhuang region, and there were only 100 Taoist rhymes in profit. Furthermore, he would need to kill several golden core experts. Even powerful figures would hesitate. After all, it was not easy for an almighty to descend and kill the clones of a Golden Core Realm expert. In addition, there was a distance of 43 million kilometers. The weakening effect of killing these Golden Core Realm experts would probably last for several years. And in these few years, if there were any accidents, then it would be too late for regrets. There was no need to put oneself in danger for 100 Taoist rhymes. However, it was nothing to Xing Hui. The weakening effect of a normal clone using the 5th-order cloning technique was completely within his acceptable range. Furthermore, he had the backtrack technique to reverse the weakening effect. Once his clone went over, he would use his personal space to transfer his original body. When his original body arrived at the Cloud Sea mainland, he would complete the mission. To him, 1 sword was enough. This mission could only be considered as earning some extra money. As for long-term development, the production of Taoist rhymes was not even half of that of Eastern Wilderness. In a year, there would only be 70 to 80 Taoist rhymes. Xing Hui could not be bothered to spend too much effort on this. After all, after occupying a mainland, it did not mean that one would be able to continuously enjoy the production of Taoist rhymes. From time to time, one would have to clean up and suppress the resistance forces on the mainland. During this period, a lot of energy would be involved. As for sending people over, firstly, Tsing Hui did not have any capable subordinates. Secondly, did he not need to spend money on manpower? If there were no benefits, who would be willing to work for him? If he did not feed the horses and wanted them to run diligently, it would lead to a series of revolts sooner or later. When that time came, there would be a lot of trouble. Not to mention, in addition to internal problems, there were also external problems. Who knew if Tsing Hui was the only expert who had his eyes on the Cloud Sea continent? Thus, Tsing Hui did not have the intention to spend any effort on managing the Cloud Sea continent. What he planned to do was to plunder a wave and leave. If I want to go to a medium-sized or even a small continent to carry out a mission, the most important thing is to have loyal and reliable subordinates. Currently, the people I can use. Eastern Wilderness is considered to have some, but the overall cultivation level of the Eastern Wilderness is relatively low. They can only bully small continents like the Zhongzhen continent, but they won't be of much use in the Cloud Sea continent. I can only spend some effort on the magic of casting beans to create soldiers. Tsing Hui wondered if he should spend a huge amount of money to create a powerful spirit monster that could survive for 2 to 3 years. However, even if it was a 10th level spiritual monster, its true battle prowess was inferior to a human cultivator at the Golden Elixir realm. At best, it was comparable to a never-ending realm expert. If he really spent a huge price to create one, it might not be of any use. Deep in thought, Tsing Hui had already descended into the courtyard of the Divine Grace Trade Union. The moment he arrived, the many peak masters who were originally waiting outside the courtyard but were stopped by Su Tong all started shouting at the same time. After the departure of the Hidden Sword Sect's swordmaster, Tsing Hui, who was the only Grand Elder in the Hidden Sword Sect, was now an existence that was second only to the Hidden Sword Sect's Grand Elder. In addition to the fact that he was responsible for the assessment of the Hidden Sword Sect's 36 peaks, all the peaks of different sizes were instantly alerted. Longqi Peak Master is here to visit. Tianhua Peak Master is here to visit. Iron Jade Peak Master is here to visit. Tsing Hui's gaze swept across all the peak masters who came to visit. At this moment, there were a total of 9 peak masters waiting outside the courtyard, including the rather powerful Iron Jade Peak Master, Zhou Zunyu. Elder, these people have been waiting outside and are unwilling to leave. We can't chase them away, so please forgive us if we have disturbed you. At this moment, Su Tong hurriedly went forward and apologized to Tsing Hui. It's all right, Tsing Hui said, then said to the 9 peak masters, if there's anything you want to say it one by one according to the order of arrival. The 9 peak masters looked at each other. In the end, Longqi Peak Master Yin Fengyan was the first to go forward. Greetings to Grand Elder, come in, Tsing Hui said and went into the main hall. Once in the main hall, the Longqi Peak Master did not even care that the servants had yet to leave. He immediately half-knelt on the ground and said with a pained expression, Grand Elder, I Yin Fengyan, am guilty. Say it slowly one by one. If it's not serious and you admit your mistakes with a good attitude, I can let you off. Yes, yes, yes. As Longqi Peak Master Yin Fengyan said, he hurriedly explained all the mistakes he had made in the past few decades. When Qing Su heard that, he vaguely understood that this Peak Lord of Longqi Peak was not exactly an evil person. He had only used his position as a Peak Lord to take some small advantages. He had not done anything else that would harm the interests of the sect. This kind of situation was still within the scope of atonement. Elder, during this period of time, I relied on my position as the Peak Lord of Longqi Peak and went against my conscience to keep a lot of resources for my own use. Now that I think about it, I really regret it. Ancestor Exenda's words enlightened me and made me decide to change my ways. In order to make up for the mistakes I made in the past, I sold all of my belongings and exchanged them for 36 Dao Aura items. I will hand them all over to the sect and hand them over to Elder to decide. After that, Feng Yan will not complain at all no matter how you punish me. As Yin Fengyan said, he moved a box out of his space. Tsing Hui's gaze landed on the box that Yin Fengyan took out. He did not need to look at it to know that there was indeed a 36 Dao aura item inside. Unlike the Iron Jade Peak, the Long Qi Peak could only be considered as a small mountain. There wasn't even a single golden core expert in the mountain. To be able to take out a Dao treasure with 36 Dao auras, it could be said that he had gone bankrupt. But, seeing that you have a good attitude in admitting your mistakes, I'll put this matter aside for the time being. You'll also be the temporary peak master of Longqi Peak. During this period of time, if anyone comes to report your crimes to me, or if I find out that the crimes you've confessed are not consistent with what I've investigated, then you can forget about your position as the peak master of Longqi Peak. If the situation is serious, I'll directly report it to the Hidden Sword Master. I'll even personally clean up the mess for the Hidden Sword Master and cripple your cultivation. Xing Hui's words caused Yin Fengnian's heart to tremble. He thought about how Xing Hui defeated the 4 Golden Core experts of the North Moon Peak 2 years ago. If he really wanted to deal with Longqi Peak, which did not even have a Golden Core expert, would not be able to resist at all. For a moment he hurriedly promised. Elder, please be at ease. I have already explained all my mistakes clearly. Furthermore, I have been thinking of ways to make up for them in this period of time. If Elder were to visit Longqi Peak now, you will definitely see a brand new and thriving Longqi Peak. I hope so. You may leave. Xing Hui said. As for the 36 Dao aura item, he naturally kept it. When the time came, he would hand it over to Hidden Sword Venerable together with Zhou Zuinyu's 88 Dao aura item. After the peak master of the Longqi Peak left, the peak master of the Tianhua Peak also followed in. Tianhua Peak's purpose was the same as Longqi Peak's, to admit their mistakes and apologize. In the end, they also left behind the 29 Dao aura item. Tianhua Peak, Sword Drawing Peak, Golden Sun Peak, and the other peaks. These people seem to have heard similar information from the Peak Lord of Longqi Peak, Yin Fengnian. After learning that Qing Su did not intend to kill them all, they all felt relieved and admitted their mistakes with a very good attitude. In the end, when they left, they all turned the things they had embezzled into Dao-carrying treasures and handed them over. There were around 20 Dao-carrying treasures, and only a few of them took out 36 Dao-carrying treasures like Longqi Peak. After half a day, Xing Hui finally finished meeting with the 8 Peak Masters. At the last moment, he let Iron Jade Peak Master Zhou Zuinyu into the courtyard. Once in the courtyard, Zhou Zuinyu immediately apologized to Xing Hui. Not long ago, Zuinyu was too eager to plan for the future of Hidden Sword Sect. I did not hesitate to borrow Grand Elder Xing Hui's influence to pass the plan to Hidden Sword Venerable. I was really blinded by greed. Please punish me, Grand Elder Xing Hui. It's just some careful thoughts that need to be approved by Hidden Sword Venerable. Your starting point is also for the sect. Qing Su said indifferently, the peak lords of the other peaks have all come to apologize to me and rein themselves in, so why has the peak lord of the Iron Jade Peak come this time? Is it the same as the other peaks? Great Elder of Qing Su, I dare not say that our Iron Jade Peak is the clearest and most righteous of the 36 sword hidden peaks, but in the past century, we have never done a single thing that goes against the interests of the sect. Even when other peaks tried to drag us into their evil deeds, we rejected them without any hesitation and even tried to help them set things right. Unfortunately, the sect was affected by the rumors of the ancestral master's passing, and it was on the verge of collapse. Everyone was working together, so even if our Iron Jade Peak wanted to change the atmosphere of the sect, we were powerless to change the situation. In the end, we could only choose to stay out of it. The Great Elder of Qing Su can visit our Iron Jade Peak at any time to investigate this. If I, Zhou Zuinyu, have lied in any way, I am willing to accept any punishment from the Great Elder. Zhou Zuinyu said with certainty. Xing Hui glanced at Zhou Zuinyu. Hidden Sword Venerable's evaluation of him was that he was very capable, but also very scheming. It seemed that Zhou Zuinyu had long since noticed that the Hidden Sword sect's direction was not right. He had been adjusting the discipline of his Iron Jade Peak. His purpose was to wait for this moment. If all the peaks in the Hidden Sword sect were in a foul situation, but Iron Jade Peak was able to maintain its integrity and outshine the others, they would immediately be noticed by Hidden Sword Venerable. At that time, Hidden Sword Venerable would naturally take away the authority of the Hidden Sword sect from Hidden Sword Peak and hand it over to Iron Jade Peak. Chapter 5:16. Considering the calculative and utilitarian nature of the Iron Jade Peak Master, Sing Hui's heart was slightly moved. He already had a plan. I will investigate the matter of the Iron Jade Peak. As for now, I can give you a chance to atone for your crimes by using me to send a message to the Hidden Sword Venerable. Hearing this, Zhou Zunyu was immediately overjoyed. Please instruct me, Supreme Elder. If I, Zhou Zunyu, am able to do it, I will do my best to complete Elder's instructions. I have a lot of crimes that the Peak Masters have confessed. You can secretly investigate the authenticity of each of them. If there are people who still try to hide the truth from me, inform me immediately. Sing Hui slowly said. Since the Peak Master of the Iron Jade Peak, Zhou Zunyu, had the intention to replace the Hidden Sword Peak and become the main peak of the Hidden Sword sect, then he would definitely not let go of any stain on the Peak Masters of the other peaks. After all, these stains were his powerful weapons to eliminate his competitors. If this matter was handed over to him, he would definitely treat it as his own business and handle it conscientiously. In addition, he had been in the Hidden Sword sect for many years and even had the intention to compete with the Hidden Sword Peak. He must have a lot of power. When investigating these matters, he would naturally be very efficient. Zhou Zunyu led the people of the Iron Jade Peak to take care of the trivial matters of the various peaks, while Tsing Hui watched over Zhou Zunyu. This way, his workload would undoubtedly be reduced by a lot. Since you have the intention to replace the Hidden Sword Peak as the new sect leader of the Hidden Sword sect, then you naturally have to show enough ability. Right now, secretly investigating the authenticity of the information given by the other peaks is your chance. Whether or not you can obtain my approval will depend on this. I hope you won't disappoint me. When Zhou Zunyu heard that, he immediately clasped his hands and promised excitedly, "Don't worry, Great Elder Qing Su. I, Zhou Zunyu, will definitely investigate these mountains thoroughly. I won't let any black sheep escape." Very good. Sing Hui nodded slightly. In the end, he said, "You specially came to visit me. Don't tell me that you are here to apologize to me for what happened that day." Of course not. As Zhou Zunyu said that, he hesitated for a moment before continuing, "I've actually come this time because I have something to report to the Great Elder of the Green Ruins. According to the information I've received, the Peak Lords of the Mingjian Peak, the Polar Peak, the Heavy Sword Peak, and a few of the more powerful peaks of our Hidden Sword sect will be holding a meeting tomorrow night. The location will be Mingjian Peak. The meeting this time will be hosted by the two disciples of the Hidden Sword Venerable, Su Ran and Zhong Xian, two veteran Golden Core experts. There will be a total of 26 Golden Core experts present, while there will be over 60 people who will be representing the 36 peaks of the Hidden Sword sect. Some of them will be representing the 36 peaks of the Hidden Sword sect, while some will be representing sects of various sizes that are vassal to the Hidden Sword sect. The matter to be discussed is related to the Great Elder of the Green Ruins. They have also invited our Taiyu Peak, but we have turned them down. 26 Golden Core experts, 10 or so mountain peaks, and some sects of various sizes that are dependent on the Hidden Sword sect. Sing Hui looked indifferent. What do these people want to do? Are they trying to rebel? Zhou Zunyu did not see any fear or trouble on Qing Su's face when he heard the number of 26 Golden Core cultivators. He let out a sigh of relief inside, like a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders. Sing Hui was able to defeat the 4 Gold Core experts of the North Moon Peak 2 years ago, showing a strength that was far beyond the Gold Core level. Now that he had cultivated with Hidden Sword Master for 2 years, although it was not a long time, it could be concluded that his cultivation must have improved a lot. This was the reason why Zhou Zunyu took the risk of not being able to establish himself in the Hidden Sword sect if he failed, and reported this to Tsing Hui. Of course, the fact that Zhou Zunyu had spent 88 Taoist rhymes on Tsing Hui was also one of the main reasons. Otherwise, he might not have intervened in this meeting that Su Ran and Zhongshuan held to fight against Tsing Hui, the Supreme Elder. However, he would not take the risk of offending the core members of the Hidden Sword sect and telling Tsing Hui about this. I don't know the exact reason why these people have banded together, but it's probably related to the sword Venerable Hidden Sword appointing you as our second Great Elder. After all, our Hidden Sword sect has never had a second Great Elder before you. Even the most respected elder in the entire sect, Elder Duan Jianfeng, is only an elder who watches over the myriad swords peak. He's nowhere near as important as a Great Elder. These people have probably gathered together to create pressure so that you can ask the sword Venerable Hidden Sword for permission to step down from your position as a Great Elder and be demoted to a regular elder. After all, even with the hymn of 100 swords, you're only being nurtured as the future sect master of the Hidden Sword sect. It'll still take some time before you become the sect master, let alone a Great Elder who's even more important than the sect master. I know. Tsing Hui responded but did not say anything else. You don't have to worry about these things. You just have to investigate those mountains. Remember, investigate secretly. I gave you the right to do so, but it doesn't mean you can use it to do whatever you want. Do you understand? Yes, Supreme Elder Tsing Hui, don't worry about that. Zhou Zuanyu saw that he had achieved his goal, so he respectfully agreed. You may leave. I'll take my leave. Zhou Zuanyu bowed respectfully and left the courtyard. When he left the courtyard, he had a smile on his face. He had already sent the news to Tsing Hui. Now, he just had to wait for the show between Supreme Elder Tsing Hui and the other mountains tomorrow night. Zhou Zuanyu. Seeing Zhou Zuanyu leave, Tsing Hui shook his head. He could see that this was Zhou Zuanyu's overt scheme. He wanted him to fall out with Mingjian Peak, Aurora Peak, Heavy Sword Peak, and the other forces. In this way, these mountains that were qualified to compete with him for the Hidden Sword sect leader's throne would definitely be destroyed by Tsing Hui and thrown into the trash can. Without these powerful mountains to compete with him, the remaining mountains that were stronger than him might not be as fair as him, and those that were fairer than him might not have the strength to control the situation. In Zhou Zuanyu's opinion, he only needed to wait until the conflict between Tsing Hui and these mountains completely erupted. He only needed to ensure that he did not make any big mistakes and conscientiously complete the tasks that Tsing Hui gave him. Then, the throne of the Hidden Sword sect leader would naturally fall into his hands. Unfortunately, in a sect, scheming against each other was not the mainstream. The most important thing was to be able to unite all the forces of the entire sect into a single entity. In his opinion, only such a person could be called a qualified sect leader and a qualified sect leader. And Zhou Zuanyu, obviously, he did not have the qualifications. The problem that the Hidden Sword sect is facing isn't small at all. 100 years. The Hidden Sword Venerable hasn't appeared for 100 years and the sect is already in such a mess. From this, it can be seen that the Hidden Sword sect itself also has quite a big problem. A big mess needs to be solved. Since that's the case, then let's be a little more ruthless and solve the problem that the Hidden Sword sect is facing. Tsing Hui looked in the direction of Mingjian Peak and muttered to himself. His eyes flashed with a trace of cold light. Just when Tsing Hui thought that most of the people that he should visit had arrived, an unexpected person suddenly appeared in Tsing Hui's courtyard under the lead of Su Shao. Su Shao looked at the man behind him who was hidden in a black robe. He was still a little emotional. After a while, he turned to Tsing Hui and said, "Mr. Sect leader is here to visit." As the man in the black robe pushed his hat to the back of his neck, the current sect leader of the Hidden Sword sect, Xiao Luing, was revealed. Xiao Luing looked at Tsing Hui and hesitated for a moment. But he still lowered his head and bowed. "Greetings, Grand Elder." "Sect leader Xiao," Tsing Hui said calmly. Xiao Luing, the son of the Hidden Sword Venerable's eldest disciple, Xiao Zongyan. He had cultivated to the Golden Core stage at a young age and had mastered the essence of the Sword Tao. He was hailed as the Sword Sage and the current sect leader of the Hidden Sword sect. Tsing Hui could only use one sentence to describe this sect leader of the Hidden Sword sect. Dead seat without doing any work. That's right, dead seat without doing any work. Xiao Luing didn't make any big mistakes when he was the sect leader of the Hidden Sword sect. But he didn't make any contributions either. On the contrary, he, who occupied the sect leader's throne, spent most of his time in seclusion. He made use of the unique cultivation environment that the sect leader could enjoy and cultivated day and night. His cultivation was almost comparable to the hidden sword venerable's seclusion for 100 years. Even though he had not harmed any of the hidden sword sect's interests in the past 100 years, nor had he committed any heinous crimes, as the sect leader of the hidden sword sect and the person at the helm of such a large sect, not doing anything was his biggest mistake. If it wasn't for the fact that he spent most of his time in seclusion and didn't care much about the affairs of the hidden sword sect, the situation of the hidden sword sect wouldn't have deteriorated to such an extent in just 100 years. After all, the hidden sword peak was the biggest peak in the hidden sword sect. Even if the Aurora Peak and the North Moon Peak were in their prime, they couldn't be compared to the hidden sword peak. If the hidden sword peak really wanted to control the atmosphere of the hidden sword sect and suppress the arrogance of the Aurora Peak and the North Moon Peak and the Aurora Peak wouldn't be able to stand out in a short period of time. Unfortunately, he didn't. Sect leader Xiao, why didn't you continue to cultivate in seclusion in the hidden sword peak and condense your golden core earlier? Xiao Luing glanced at Xing Hui. He really couldn't figure out the depth of Xing Hui's thoughts. However, considering the importance that the hidden sword venerable placed on Xing Hui and the words that his martial uncle Duan Jianfeng said to him when he asked for advice, he still lowered his attitude. I'm here to apologize to Grand Elder Xing Hui. Apologize? Sect leader Xiao didn't do anything that harmed the interests of the hidden sword sect. What do you mean by apologizing? A sliver of guilt flashed through Xiao Luing's eyes. I may not have done anything that harms the interests of the sect, but as the sect master of the hidden sword sect, I've watched the Aurora Peak, North Moon Peak, and the other peaks grow bigger and bigger, becoming arrogant and despotic as they bully our fellow sect members. Yet, I've been too cautious and indecisive, indirectly allowing their arrogance to flourish. This is my greatest mistake. As a result, I've come to resign from my position as the sect master of the hidden sword sect, hoping that the great elder will allow me to resign from my position as the sect master of the hidden sword sect and give it to someone more capable. Chapter 517. Xing Hui was a little surprised by Xiao Luing's words. Su Xiao couldn't help but exclaim, "Sect Master. When I competed for the Sect Master's throne, it was actually because of the special cultivation environment that the Sect Master could have. In fact, I haven't made any contributions to the Hidden Sword Sect since I took up the position. The reason why I didn't choose a new successor was because of my selfishness. I wanted to use the Sect Master's power to cultivate the upper-grade golden core in my body to perfection as soon as possible, and even break through to the level of the peerless golden core in one go. Because of this, I didn't want to give up the Sect Master's throne. I even turned a blind eye to the North Moon Peak and Aurora Peak causing trouble in the sect. On one hand, I didn't want to be distracted by this matter. On the other hand, I was worried that if I angered the North Moon Peak and Aurora Peak, it would cause unrest in the Hidden Sword sect and affect the stability of the sect. I'm afraid you weren't afraid of the two peaks causing unrest in the sect, but you were worried that the two peaks would target your sect master's throne and cause you to be unable to cultivate peacefully, right? Xing Hui snorted coldly. That's impossible, right? Su Xiao couldn't help but interrupt. The Hidden Sword Peak is more powerful than the North Moon Peak and Aurora Peak. If the two peak masters are still rational, they should know that it's very difficult for them to take the sect master's throne from the Hidden Sword Peak. It's very difficult, but that doesn't mean they can't do it. Even if they can't do it, once the North Moon Peak and Aurora Peak target the Hidden Sword Peak, I'm afraid the Hidden Sword Peak won't have a peaceful day for a long time. Once this peace is broken, all kinds of big and small problems will come one after another. When that time comes, Xiao Luing, the sect master, won't have enough time to cultivate in seclusion, condense his peerless golden core, and step into the door of God power. Xing Hui said indifferently. Xiao Luing lowered his head under Xing Hui's accusation and didn't have anything to say. Xiao Feiying's talent was not bad, but he could only be considered a normal genius. He was still far from being a peerless genius. In his life, cultivating a high-grade golden core would be his limit. Even then, he would have to rely on a lot of external help to achieve it. If he wanted to cultivate a peerless golden core, he would be able to enter the transcendent realm, and his position as the Hidden Sword House's Grand Master would not be shaken. Once he lost the benefits of being the sect master, a superior-grade golden core would be his limit. He would have to beg the Hidden Sword Supremacy for more resources to complete his superior-grade golden core. As for whether or not one could develop a divine ability after reaching the golden core realm, that would depend on the will of the heavens. All these factors led to the fact that Xiao Luiying did nothing to help the North Moon Peak and Aurora Peak. This is selfish. Xiao Luiying lowered his head sadly. Indeed, you are no longer fit to sit on the Hidden Sword Sect leader's throne. However, you reap what you sow. After so many years, you have become the Hidden Sword Sect leader and allowed the Hidden Sword Sect's situation to deteriorate. Now that you want to step down from your position as the Hidden Sword Sect leader, you naturally have to put an end to everything that you have caused. Once all these problems have been resolved, I will request the Hidden Sword Sect leader to allow you to enter the Burial Sword Peak for closed-door cultivation. As for whether or not you can break through to the Transcendent stage, that will depend on your own fortune. Xinghui said. Xiao Luiying looked guilty, but he still respectfully said, I'll follow the Grand Elder's orders. What do you need me to do? You don't know? Xinghui looked at Xiao Luiying and said, Don't tell me you don't know anything about the gathering on Mingjian Peak. Mingjian Peak? Xiao Luiying was confused. I've been visiting Senior Uncle Duan on Wanjian Peak for the whole day, and didn't return to the Hidden Sword Peak at all. I'll send a message to ask what happened. Then he took out a communication jade talisman and sent the message in front of Xinghui. Soon, the jade talisman vibrated, and there was a reply. When Xiao Luiying read the message in the jade talisman, his face changed and he couldn't help but scold. Nonsense. What the two senior uncles did, they didn't respect the Grand Elder at all. After that, he turned to Qing Su in a hurry and said, Great Elder, I think the two senior uncles must have been confused for a moment. I'll go to the famed Sword Peak right now and persuade the two senior uncles to disperse the gathering immediately. Xinghui looked at Xiao Luiying and said coldly, I'll let you deal with this first. If you can't, then I'll do it myself. Do it yourself. Xiao Luiying's face froze when he heard Xinghui's words. Although everyone's impression of Xinghui was still at the time when he defeated the 4 golden core powerhouses of the North Moon Peak by himself 2 years ago, based on his senses and Duan Jianfeng's senses of Xinghui, he knew that this Grand Elder wasn't as simple as they thought. In the past 2 years, he had followed the Hidden Sword Venerable in the Buried Sword Peak and had undergone some drastic changes. Once the changes were revealed, it would be enough to crush Su Ran and Zhong Xian, who were trying to fight against Xinghui and the dozens of golden core powerhouses among the Peak Masters. Therefore, he absolutely could not watch this happen without doing anything. Don't worry, Grand Elder Xinghui, I'll take care of this properly and won't disturb you. I hope so, Xinghui said. Xiao Luiying bowed and quickly left the courtyard. Grand Elder, are the Mingjian Peak, Aurora Peak, and the other peaks really working together to harm you? Su Xiao looked at Xinghui and asked worriedly. Is this important? If the people from the Mingjian Peak and Aurora Peak really dare to do this, why don't you enter the Burial Sword Peak? The Burial Sword Peak is protected by a powerful formation that was personally set up by a close friend of our patriarch. With this formation, no one will be able to hurt you unless an almighty who has cultivated divine sense attacks you personally. When Hidden Swordmaster arrives, you can report this matter to him. I believe Hidden Swordmaster will understand your difficulties. Hide in the Buried Sword Peak? Xinghui smiled faintly. The Hidden Sword Venerable asked me to investigate the 36 peaks of the Hidden Sword sect. If I hide in the Buried Sword Peak, how can I investigate? Alright, I know what to do. It's best if Xiao Luiying can solve this problem. If not, I'll do it myself. Su Xiao saw that Xinghui was calm and confident. She wanted to persuade him, but soon, she thought of 2 years ago when Xinghui wanted to help the Divine Grace Chamber of Commerce out of trouble. However, because of her distrust, the Divine Grace Chamber of Commerce was almost in danger. If it wasn't for Mr. Xinghui's great power, the Divine Grace Chamber of Commerce would have been finished. Thinking of this, she stopped talking and waited to see what would happen. A day passed by quickly. On this day, the departure of the Hidden Sword sect could be said to have changed the situation inside and outside the Hidden Sword sect. Countless peak masters and elders rushed to leave, racking their brains for their future. On this day, Xing Hui didn't go to the famous Sword Peak as Zhou Zuinyu expected. He didn't stop Su Ran and Zhong Xian from forming the alliance. Instead, he stayed quietly in the Divine Grace Chamber of Commerce and observed the situation. Just when Xing Hui thought that nothing big would happen on this day, a fierce battle broke out and shocked all the cultivators within 100 kilometers of the Hidden Sword sect. It's from the famous Sword Peak. Su Xiao, Su Tong, Xing Lian, Jin Yin, and Si Tongzhen, who had been paying attention to the famous Sword Peak, ran to Xing Hui's courtyard immediately. The Grand Elder didn't go to the famous Sword Peak. Then who is attacking the people there? Jin Yin was confused. Should we report to the Grand Elder and go to the famous Sword Peak together? Su Tong glanced at the courtyard where Xing Hui was and asked doubtfully. Su Xiao hesitated for a moment and thought of the conversation between Xing Hui and Sect Master Xiao yesterday. In the end, she shook her head and said, "We can all feel the mighty energy wave, let alone the Grand Elder Xing Hui. But the Grand Elder Xing Hui didn't show up. He must have his own considerations." After that, she turned to Jin Yin and said, "Elder, I'll have to trouble you to find out what happened at Mingjian Peak." Jin Yin responded and rose into the air at once, flying in the direction of Mingjian Peak. "Let's go together." Xing Lian and Si Tongzhen followed. Su Tong and Su Xiao stayed outside Xing Hui's courtyard and waited for the next news. After a while, Jin Yin sent the news over. It's the Hidden Sword Peak. The Hidden Sword Peak is fighting with the famous Sword Peak, Aurora Peak, and Heavy Sword Peak. The Hidden Sword Peak is fighting with the Heavy Sword Peak, Famous Sword Peak, and Aurora Peak. Su Xiao was slightly stunned. Then, as if she realized something, her face suddenly changed. At this time, Su Tong took out her communication jade charm. Obviously, someone had sent her a message. The Hidden Sword Peak is fighting with the Heavy Sword Peak, Aurora Peak, and Famous Sword Peak. But to be exact, it's not the Hidden Sword Peak, Famous Sword Peak, and Heavy Sword Peak, Aurora Peak, and Famous Sword Peak that are fighting. More than 30 experts led by Sect Master Xiao Luing, 26 Golden Core Stage experts, and hundreds of Transcendent Stage and Eternal Stage experts led by the Heavy Sword Peak, Aurora Peak, and Famous Sword Peak. Not all the experts of the Hidden Sword Peak are involved. Less than half of them are involved. Less than half. This result surprised Su Xiao. Sect Master Xiao is not only the Sect Master of the Hidden Sword Sect, but also the Peak Master of the Hidden Sword Peak. Is there anyone in the Hidden Sword Peak who doesn't obey his orders? Su Tong shook her head. She wasn't there, so she naturally didn't know what happened. At this moment, a sword light came whistling from the horizon at an extremely fast speed. It was Si Tongzhen who had followed Jin Yin to watch the show. Si Tongzhen hurried to this area of space and cried out in a hurry, "Oh no!" Senior uncles Su Ming and Zhong Xian have brought 16 Golden Core experts and several dozen never-ending, transformative, and true energy experts over to our Divine Grace Chamber of Commerce. Their objective is to force the Great Elder of Qing Su to resign from his position as the Great Elder to the Venerable Hidden Sword and leave the Hidden Sword sect, never to set foot in the sect again. Chapter 518. What? Su Xiao, Su Tong, and the others were shocked by Si Tongzhen's words. How are the Supreme Elder Xing Hui is the Supreme Elder appointed by the Sword Supreme himself. Not only do they want Supreme Elder Xing Hui to resign from his position, but they also want him to leave the Hidden Sword sect and never set foot in the Hidden Sword sect again. Are they trying to go against Hidden Sword Venerable's orders? Su Tong said in disbelief. I don't know the exact details either. They keep saying that the Great Elder of Qing Su Ruins possesses a special secret technique and has bewitched Lord Hidden Sword Venerable. It seems like even the sect master has been bewitched by them, which is why he mustered so many people to strike out in anger and expel the great elder of Qingsu ruins in one fell swoop. Even if Lord Hidden Sword Venerable learns of this in the future and flies into a rage, the outcome is already set. When Si Tongzhen said that, he hurriedly advised, "Let's ask the great elder of Qingsu to hide at the Sword Burial Peak. Over a dozen Golden Core experts are coming aggressively, and they're even led by the Sword Venerable's direct disciples, Su Ran and Zhong Xian. This force is definitely not something any Golden Core expert can withstand." All right. At this moment, a voice came from the courtyard. It was Tsing Hui. Seeing Tsing Hui walk out of the courtyard, Si Tongzhen, Su Tong, and the others quickly bowed. "Greetings, Supreme Elder Tsing Hui. It seems that the problem of the Hidden Sword sect is much more serious than I thought. This problem is not only brought about by the Grand Supreme in the way of heaven, but also by the Hidden Sword sect itself. Among them, Su Ran and Zhongshuan, the two personal disciples of the Hidden Sword Venerable, are the biggest black sheep." Tsing Hui raised his head and looked at the horizon. There, he could faintly see a stream of light approaching quickly. "I vaguely understand why the Sword Supreme asked me to deal with the Hidden Sword sect. He really doesn't know how to deal with his two disciples who have been with each other for thousands of years. Since the Sword Supreme is troubled, I'll deal with it on behalf of the Sword Supreme." After saying that, Tsing Hui leaped and stepped into the void. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Almost at the moment when Tsing Hui stepped into the void, dozens of sword lights whizzed in from all directions and surrounded Tsing Hui. "Tsing Hui!" With a loud shout, Su Kong, the Peak Master of Mingjian Peak, Lu Xiangyang, the Peak Master of Polar Peak, and Xue Huabai, the Peak Master of Heavy Sword Peak, stepped out of the crowd at the same time. At the same time, Su Ran and Zhong Xian, the two disciples of Hidden Sword Venerable, stepped forward. "Qing Su, just what sort of evil secret technique did you use to actually bewitch my master? Tell me the truth, and I can still spare you and spare your life. Otherwise, I'll capture you later and guarantee that you'll face a life or death struggle." Su Kong, the Sword Supreme, shouted. "That's right. Now your only choice is to surrender. You'll only be asking for trouble if you're stubborn." Su Ran said slowly in a gloomy voice. "I believe that my master would never appoint someone who is not from the Hidden Sword sect as the Supreme Elder for no reason. There must be something I don't know. Today, you'd better tell me all the tricks you used to bewitch my master. Otherwise, don't blame me for being merciless." Zhong Xian said. Qing Su glanced past all the elders, peak lords, and guests before him, including the two disciples of the sword-concealing Venerable, Su Ran and Zhong Xian. In the end, he exhaled slowly, "You're blinded by greed." "What did you say? You're about to die and yet you're still so stubborn." Su Ran stepped forward and said in a sharp voice, "Why did you come to kill me?" "It's because I was ordered to investigate all the crimes that you've committed against the interests of the Hidden Sword sect. Therefore, I chose to strike first to gain the upper hand. All of you know what's going on. Why do you have to find such a high-sounding reason for yourself?" Tsing Hui looked at Su Ran coldly. "Didn't all of you think about it carefully? Since the Sword Supreme entrusted this task to me, how could he not have expected that I would face all kinds of difficulties? However, he still entrusted this task to me. It shows that I have the ability to solve these difficulties. Otherwise, why would the Sword Supreme want to kill me? I'm giving all of you one last chance. Retreat immediately and hand over all the crimes that you've committed over the years, as well as the interests of the Hidden Sword sect. Resign from your positions and I'll let all of you live in peace. Otherwise, don't blame me for being merciless." "Huh?" Tsing Hui's words made everyone's expression change slightly. They looked at Tsing Hui with fear in their eyes. Could it be that the person in front of them was really a powerful expert? However, they had clearly investigated that the battle between him and the 4 Golden Core Realm experts of the North Moon Peak 2 years ago had only resulted in a draw. Now, with over a dozen Golden Core Realm experts swarming him, there was absolutely no possibility of him winning. "Everyone, don't worry. He's just bluffing. Have you forgotten the information we got from the North Moon Peak and Aurora Peak?" Even if 2 years had passed, how much could he have improved in his cultivation? Could it be that he has cultivated divine powers? He's just saying that to scare us. Su Ran said loudly. Mingjian Peak Master Su Kong also said, "That's right. The Sword Supreme Master has been in seclusion for hundreds of years. During this time, he doesn't know much about the development of the hidden sword sect. That's why he gave this seemingly wrong order. This order is the opportunity for us to set things right and restore order in the hidden sword sect." After Su Ran and Su Kong shouted, the Gold Core Realm experts, who were originally a little afraid, became excited again. Even though Tsing Hui had been cultivating with the Sword Supreme Master for the past 2 years, could he have developed divine powers in 2 years? With this mentality, none of the Gold Core Realm experts retreated. Instead, they faintly formed a formation and blocked all of Tsing Hui's escape routes. Tsing Hui glanced at the Gold Core Realm experts one by one. Finally, his eyes fell on Su Ran and Zhong Xian. "I've given you a chance. This is your final choice?" Sword Supreme Master Hidden Sword had treated him well, and it was not an exaggeration to say that he owed him a great favor. Su Ran and Zhong Xian were his disciples, but they had disobeyed many of his orders. They had stirred up the hidden sword sect that he had established. It was really distressing. Now that he had scolded them again and again, these people were still stubborn and unrepentant. They could not blame him. Since Sword Supreme Master Hidden Sword could not teach the two of them a lesson due to their relationship as master and disciple, then he would do it himself. "Don't give him time to talk nonsense. Take him down." Su Ran shouted and immediately waved his hand. The 3 Gold Core Realm experts of the Mingjian Peak jumped up at the same time. Their genuine vitality surged and the power of the Gold Core burst out. Above their heads, powerful spiritual beasts and even phantoms of pseudo-divine beasts swept out a mighty pressure. With the momentum of Mount Tai, they bombarded Tsing Hui, who was in the middle of the encirclement. Seeing the 3 Gold Core Realm experts of the Mingjian Peak attacking, the other Gold Core Realm experts of the other peaks were unwilling to be left behind. They all manifested their divine bodies at the same time, and their gold cores burst out. In an instant, a total of 9 Gold Core Realm experts attacked at the same time. The mighty energy waves swept through the void. With just a glance, everyone could clearly feel the vast and mighty power contained in the attacks of the 9 Gold Core Realm experts. One attack can cripple him. Whether Tsing Hui is bluffing or is he really capable, we can test it in one attack. Have they finally attacked? At this moment, countless cultivators of the Hidden Sword Sect's 36 peaks, and even a large number of representatives of the small and medium-sized sects that were originally affiliated with the Hidden Sword Sect, looked in this direction at the same time. This battle could be said to directly determine the future of the Hidden Sword Sect. Clang. Just as everyone's attention was attracted by the mighty power of the 9 Gold Core Realm experts' attack, a loud and clear sound of a sword rang through the void. In the next moment, a shocking ray of sword light shot into the sky like a dazzling sun, carrying a vast and majestic pressure. In an instant, it tore apart all the clouds in the sky and pierced through the sky. After the sword light rushed into the sky and reached its peak, it exploded like a firework, giving birth to 9 rays of sword chi, which violently blasted towards the 9 Gold Core Realm experts' attack. The sword chi that tore the void and the mighty attack of the Gold Core Realm collided fiercely in the void. Rumble! The sound of a violent explosion echoed in the void. However, the sound of the explosion wasn't as powerful or deafening as everyone had imagined. On the contrary, it was low and ear-piercing. The feeling was like a creature flying at high speed suddenly breaking the sound barrier, or like the sound of a bullet piercing a balloon, causing one's eardrums to ring. Before anyone could react to this strange sound, the 9 rays of dazzling sword light had already torn through the energy torrent formed by the 9 Gold Core Realm experts' attack. The remaining force did not diminish as it shot into the majestic battle bodies of the 9 Gold Core Realm experts. In the face of this sudden attack, the 9 Gold Core Realm experts' reaction could not be said to be slow. One by one, they either attacked or defended, each displaying their remarkable abilities to block the 9 rays of sword chi. However, it was useless. It was like using a scalding divine sword to cut through the beginnings of tofu. The 9 rays of sword chi pierced through the battle bodies of the 9 gold core realm experts with an unstoppable force and continued to advance inch by inch, directly cutting into the bodies of the 9 gold core realm experts. The sword chi exploded, and the 9 gold core realm experts cried out in pain at the same time. One by one, their arms were smashed into pieces by the sword chi, exploding into a bloody pulp. Is that all? After heavily injuring the 9 gold core realm experts with a single strike, Xing Hui completely ignored the stunned gold core realm experts and indifferently moved forward. The scarlet abyss sword in his hand trembled, and sword chi shot out explosively. The 2 gold core realm experts in front of him who did not have time to push away screamed at the same time. Their manifested battle bodies were crushed into pieces by the 2 rays of sword chi at an unbelievable speed. The collapse of their battle bodies and the heavy injury to their souls naturally caused the 2 of them to cry out in pain. Their faces were filled with fear as they retreated rapidly, completely leaving the distance between Xing Hui and Su Ran, Su Kong, Zhong Xian, and the others. This caused the culprits of this operation to be directly exposed to Xing Hui's sword. Take my sword. If the 3 of you can still stand, I will let bygones be bygones. Otherwise, if you don't even have this ability and still dare to provoke me, the Supreme Elder, then be prepared to pay the price. Xing Hui raised the scarlet abyss sword high in the air, and sword chi filled the air once again. Chapter 5:19. Divine Power. Divine Power. You've cultivated divine power. You're an almighty in the divine power realm. Su Ran, Su Kong, Lu Xiangyang, Zhong Xian, and the others couldn't help but scream when they saw Xing Hui severely injuring 9 golden core realm experts with 1 strike. The other cultivators who were watching this scene from afar were all shocked. They had been guessing what methods Xing Hui would use to fight against the alliance of 26 golden core realm experts formed by Su Ran, Su Kong, Zhong Xian, and the others. However, they never expected that Xing Hui's final method would be so direct, simple, and violent. This is definitely the power of divine power. The person that sword venerable left behind to guard the sect is actually an almighty? No wonder the patriarch appointed him as the 2nd supreme elder of the hidden sword sect. No wonder Supreme Elder Xing Hui was not afraid of the alliance of these people. It turns out that he is an almighty who has cultivated divine power. Forget about the alliance formed by martial uncle Su Ming and martial uncle Zhong Xian. Even if all the golden core realm experts in the entire hidden sword sect were to join forces and attack at the same time, I'm afraid it would still be difficult for us to be his match. Wasn't Supreme Elder Xing Hui only at the upper grade golden core realm 2 years ago? Could it be that in these 2 years, his golden core has matured and developed divine power, allowing him to advance to the divine power realm and become an invincible almighty? Waves of shocked voices rose and fell one after another. At this moment, many people were shocked by the divine power that Xing Hui had displayed. Impossible. 2 years, only 2 years. How could you have developed divine power? It's fake. It's fake. You must have exploded your golden core and supplemented it with a secret technique to create an effect similar to divine power. You definitely can't sustain such an attack. Let me personally tear off that pretentious face of yours. Su Ming roared in disbelief. Her silhouette soared into the air as a resplendent sword light soared into the sky. This was the brilliance of a 12th-ranked divine weapon. At the same time, an illusory image of a golden rock appeared. However, Xing Hui seemed to turn a blind eye to the momentum that she had erupted with. The dragon abyss sword slashed down, and immediately, it was as if a vast and mighty sun golden wheel was rolling and crushing. Su Ran's level 12 divine weapon and golden rock image that had erupted with all her might could not resist this blazing sword chi at all and were directly smashed into pieces. Su Ran let out a roar of anger and pain, trying in vain to counterattack. Unfortunately, it was useless. The difference between her and Qing Su was like the difference between a regular golden core cultivator and a great figure who had cultivated abilities. It was so great that it was incalculable. After the vast and mighty sword Qi destroyed her attack, its momentum did not diminish. It directly tore through her golden rock battle body and then exploded in front of her. In an instant, dozens of fine sword Qi pierced through her body, turning her into a bloody person. Xing Hui considered that Su Ran was Sword Venerable Hidden Sword's personal disciple, so he did not kill her. Otherwise, Su Ran might not even be able to keep her life after this strike. One strike. Su Ran was severely injured and did not even have the ability to stand still. She fell from the sky. After this strike, Xing Hui's gaze turned and landed on Su Kong. Su Kong's eyes narrowed when he saw Su Ran's fate. He turned around and was about to escape on his sword. Clang! The sword whistled in the sky. A sword light that was not any weaker than the previous one swept down with a vast and mighty aura. Under the pressure of life and death, Su Kong had no choice but to roar. The power of his battle body was pushed to the extreme, and an unprecedented vast and mighty power surged in his golden core, causing his battle body to overflow with golden light. It was very beautiful, it was beautiful. It was the kind of good-looking but useless. Su Kong's full-powered strike with his golden core had pushed the might of his constitution to the limit, making him seem like a mighty and invincible god of war. However, before the vast and resplendent streak of light from Qing Su, he was like a resplendent bubble that would burst with a single poke. Rumble! The mighty roar, mixed with the sound of Su Kong's battle physique collapsing, spread out in all directions. The power of Su Kong's constitution that he had unleashed to the limit was directly pulverized by Qing Su's brilliant sword light. After shattering his body, the streak of sword light descended like how it dealt with Su Ran. At the same time, it shattered all of his defenses and turned into countless tiny streaks of sword light that pierced through his body. The double blow to his body and soul instantly exceeded the limits of what Su Kong's nerves could bear, causing him to pass out on the spot. The Golden Core experts of the Hidden Sword sect had been peaceful for a long time. Their minds and tenacity were far from comparable to those Golden Core experts who had gone through countless trials and tribulations, even though those Golden Core experts who wandered on the edge of life and death all year round would still only die when they encountered a true transcendent expert. However, at least they would not be as helpless as Su Kong. No matter what, they would still be able to last a breath or two in front of a transcendent expert. Stop! With another sword strike that heavily injured Su Kong, Xing Hui's gaze swept across the Golden Core experts who were filled with fear and terror. If anyone dares to resist, I will no longer show mercy and will kill without mercy. Those Golden Core experts had long been scared out of their wits by Xing Hui's almighty methods. When they heard Xing Hui's shout, none of them dared to resist at all. They instantly withdrew their battle bodies and trembled in fear, not daring to make any rash movements. Their eyes were filled with terror as they looked at Xing Hui. Su Tong, Si Tongzhen, Jinin, the few of you, go and seal their cultivation. Xing Hui ordered Su Tong and the others. The several people who received the order hurriedly leaped forward, arriving in front of the dozens of Golden Core experts, and sealed their true yuan one by one. The battle body was based on the consciousness and condensed from true yuan. Once the true yuan in the body was sealed, only the consciousness was left, and the so-called battle body was just an empty shell. However, just as Su Tong was about to seal a Golden Core Stage Elder of the Mingjian Peak, the Golden Core Stage Elder suddenly moved, and in an instant caught Su Tong in his hand. At the same time, he shouted at Xing Hui, "Supreme Elder Xing Hui, let me go. I will leave the Hidden Sword Continent and go to Heaven Wasteland. From now on, I will never set foot in the Hidden Sword Continent again." It's Shui Yu of the Mingjian Peak. Over the past few decades, Shui Yu has relied on his identity as an elder of the Mingjian Peak to commit countless atrocities. He has persecuted his fellow disciples and infringed upon the interests of the sect. His crimes are unforgivable. Shui Yu's crimes are unforgivable and unforgivable. His crimes are innumerable. It is said that more than 10 years ago, there was a female disciple from the inner sect who caught his eye and wanted to take her as his concubine. However, that disciple was engaged to another disciple. Naturally, she was unwilling and was persecuted to death by him. That disciple's fiancé wanted to seek justice for his fiancée and was persecuted to death by him. This kind of person must be killed to appease the anger of the people. All kinds of discussions continued to ring out from the crowd, and soon the crimes of this elder were revealed one by one. Once the crimes he committed were investigated, the lightest punishment would be crippling his cultivation and expelling him from the sect. If it was a heavy punishment, he would even be directly executed. No wonder he didn't hesitate to take risks and hold Su Tong hostage in a futile attempt to escape. It seems that you have chosen to be stubborn to the end. Xing Hui's gaze fell on Elder Shuiyu, and his eyes were ice cold. Grand Elder Xing Hui, I have no enmity with you. Why do you have to kill me? I know this person. She is President Su Zhao's personal guard and has a high status in the Divine Grace Chamber of Commerce. You are someone invited by the Divine Grace Chamber of Commerce. You can't watch an important person of the Divine Grace Chamber of Commerce perish together with me, right? It's not worth it. If Grand Elder Xing Hui is willing to let me go, I promise that I will not offend her in the slightest, and I will never set foot in the Hidden Sword continent again. Shuiyu held Su Tong hostage, but in front of an almighty, his eyes were still filled with fear. As he spoke, he kept retreating. Grand Elder Xing Hui, nothing can be accomplished without rules. Don't worry about me. Since he has committed a heinous crime, he must be severely punished. Su Tong, who was being held hostage, quickly shouted. Shut up. Shuiyu roared angrily as his true qi surged and entered Su Tong's body. Su Tong's face immediately turned pale, and a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of her mouth. She was obviously injured. Aunt Tong. Seeing this scene, Su Xiao could not help but exclaim. When the other Golden Core Realm elders who had been captured saw this scene, their thoughts were all stirred, and their gazes were constantly sizing up Su Xiao. If it was a hostage, who was more suitable than Su Xiao? In any case, they were all Golden Core Realm experts. After leaving the Hidden Sword sect, they could live well anywhere. Why would they be trapped in the Hidden Sword continent? You're courting death. Just as those elders who had committed similar crimes were about to make a move, Xing Hui's voice rang out, penetrating the void. Clang. In the next moment, the treasured sword hummed. Under the shocked gazes of many Golden Core Realm experts, Xing Hui actually drew his sword and slashed out. This resolute attitude of completely disregarding Su Tong's life and death and still wanting to kill Elder Shuiyu made the hearts of those restless elders sink rapidly. Grand Elder Xing Hui. As Su Xiao screamed in panic, Xing Hui's sword light directly pierced through the void and pierced through Shuiyu's head at an unbelievable speed, beheading him on the spot. Unless one could raise the recovery ability to the 10th level and undergo a second mutation, decapitating someone with a single sword strike would definitely result in death for any Golden Core Realm expert. What was unbelievable was that Shuiyu seemed to be stunned on the spot throughout the entire process. It was as if he did not see Xing Hui draw his sword at all. He actually just watched as Xing Hui killed him with a single strike and died on the spot. Su Tong's figure flew, and in the blink of an eye, she distanced herself from Elder Shuiyu. However, at this time, everyone's gaze did not pay attention to Su Tong. Instead, they all looked at Elder Shuiyu's headless corpse that fell to the ground, and a chill suddenly surged in their hearts. Strange. This strange method of killing instantly shocked all the restless elders into silence. They all looked at Xing Hui with uncontrollable horror in their eyes. Almighty! Almighty! He regarded the Golden Core Realm as nothing. This was the method of an almighty. There's motivation to write, but this is the automatic update set in the morning. I reckon I can accumulate another 1 or 2 chapters today. The motivation to write tomorrow is another problem. Please solve it. Chapter 520. Looks like no one is going to resist anymore. Xing Hui scanned the Golden Core Realm experts one by one. Every time his gaze landed on someone, the Golden Core Realm experts couldn't help but shiver. They lowered their heads and wished they could hide their heads in their necks. No one dared to look at Xing Hui. Even Hidden Sword's disciple, Zhongshuan, was no exception. Xing Hui didn't need to repeat his instructions. Su Tong, Si Tongzhen, and the others quickly went forward and subdued all the Golden Core Realm, Endless Realm, and Transcendent Realm experts. The reason why Su Tong had been captured alive by Elder Shuiyu earlier was because she had been too careless. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for a Golden Core expert to capture her so easily. Now they had all become cautious. Even if the Golden Core experts had the same thoughts as Shuiyu and wanted to capture them as hostages, it would no longer be easy. Moreover, after witnessing how Qing Su had killed Shuiyu without any hesitation at all, none of the Golden Core experts had the courage to resist. Severe punishment or death. Between the two, anyone could make the right choice. Whoosh! Almost at the same time when Su Tong and the others subdued all the experts present, dozens of sword radiances whizzed through the void. The leader was Hidden Sword Peak's Peak Master, Xiao Luing. Seeing that the battle had ended, Xiao Luing was slightly shocked. Especially when he saw that Su Ran, Su Kong, and Zhongshuan were all captured alive, his shock turned into shock. What happened? Xiao Luing asked in surprise. A true energy realm expert who had been watching the show earlier hurriedly said, "It's the Great Elder of Qing Su." The Great Elder of Qing Su intimidated all of them and captured them alive. Grand Elder Tsinghui? Xiao Luing's gaze immediately fell on Tsinghui with a trace of disbelief in his eyes. Tsinghui? Wasn't he only in the Golden Core realm 2 years ago? How could he possibly subdue the dozens of Golden Core, never-ending, transformative, and true energy cultivators present? With a glance, more than half of the people present were unscathed and had been captured without even lifting a finger. Clearly, Tsinghui's strength had already reached the point where they understood that resistance was futile. Didn't that mean Xiao Suing's pupils shrank? Almighty! Supreme Elder Tsinghui was an almighty? The true energy realm warrior's next words confirmed Xiao Luing's guess. Once Martial Uncle Su Ming and the others arrived, they ordered the 9 Golden Core realm warriors to attack Grand Elder Tsinghui at the same time. However, Grand Elder Tsinghui's true cultivation isn't just Golden Core realm like we thought. He's an almighty. When he said that, the true energy experts secretly glanced in Qing Su's direction. There was a sliver of reverence in his eyes, but even more reverence, great figure. Supreme Elder Tsinghui is an almighty. No wonder the Hidden Sword Grandmaster was so assured to hand over the Hidden Sword sect to him. No wonder the Hidden Sword Grandmaster appointed him as the second Grand Elder of the Hidden Sword sect. An almighty being is completely qualified to be our Grand Elder. Almighty! Although Xiao Luing had already guessed this based on the scene in front of him, he still couldn't help but gasp when he heard the true energy boundary expert confirm it with his own ears. At this moment, his heart was filled with relief. He rejoiced that he had chosen the right side at the crucial moment, choosing the right side and not becoming enemies with this great elder, Qing Su. Otherwise, looking at the many peak masters and elders who had their true energy restrained and were hanging their heads in dejection. If he had really chosen to listen to Senior Uncle Su Ming's persuasion and join the camp against Supreme Elder Tsinghui, then Xiao Luing would definitely be one of the people who would be captured alive and awaiting punishment. No wonder the cultivators of the Hidden Sword Peak who were originally watching from the sidelines suddenly joined the battle and defeated the Golden Core experts who were keeping us busy. No wonder those Golden Core experts suddenly lost all will to fight and fled. Clearly, they've all received news of this battlefield and learned that the Great Elder of the Qing Su ruins is a great figure. A great figure is enough to suppress the entire Hidden Sword sect, or even the entire Hidden Sword continent. Xiao Luing muttered to himself. Greetings, Supreme Elder. Hidden Sword Peaks Fei, greet Supreme Elder Tsinghui. At this moment, those Hidden Sword Peak cultivators who were originally watching on the sidelines but later joined the battle hurriedly bowed to Tsinghui and couldn't wait to show their loyalty. Qing Su glanced past them. He could tell with a single glance that they were not on the same side as Xiao Luing, so he nodded indifferently. All right, lock them all up first and investigate their crimes one by one. We'll punish them after we've confirmed their crimes. Zhong Xian, who was captured alive, heard Tsinghui's words and shouted fiercely, Supreme Elder Tsinghui, you can't do this to me. You were able to cultivate the god power because my master gave you all the resources he collected. You owe my master a lot, and I'm his personal disciple. You can't do this to me, or else you'll be ungrateful. Ungrateful? Who's the ungrateful one here? Hidden Sword Sect Supreme trusted you to take care of the Hidden Sword Sect, but how did you manage the Hidden Sword Sect all these years? How did you repay Hidden Sword Sect Supreme? Don't worry, I'll investigate everything you've done all these years and hand it over to Hidden Sword Sect Supreme. When the time comes, Hidden Sword Sect Supreme will deal with you personally. With that, Qing Su waved his hand at Su Tong and the others. Immediately, the Divine Grace Chamber of Commerce's people swarmed up and took them all away. Sect Master Xiao. Supreme Elder. Xiao Luiying looked at Xing Hui with guilt in his eyes. I didn't expect to disturb Supreme Elder Xing Hui in the end. It's my fault that Supreme Elder has to deal with this personally. What about the people in this so-called alliance? We captured some of them alive, but most of them ran away. Xiao Luiying paused. Xiao Luiying paused slightly when he reached there. These people who have allied with Su Ran and Zhongshuan are all people who have greatly harmed the interests of our Hidden Sword Sect. They can't afford to be investigated at all. That's exactly why they've chosen to take the risk and stand against the great elder of Qing Su Ran and Zhongshuan under the orders of Senior Uncle Su Ran and Senior Uncle Xian Zhong. However, none of them are weak. If they really come across any danger, they can just leave directly. With their cultivation at Endless or even Golden Core, they can still live peacefully even if they leave the Hidden Sword Continent. Then list them as traitors of the Hidden Sword Sect and issue an arrest warrant for them. From now on, if anyone from the Hidden Sword Sect sees them, kill them immediately. I understand. I'll gather their information and send it to everyone. Although you haven't achieved anything as the sect master of the Hidden Sword Sect, but now, the Hidden Sword Sect is in need of people. You still have to stay in the position for a while. At the same time, I'll give you the right to nominate a new sect master. Recommend a few people that you think are suitable and I'll investigate them one by one. Xiao Feiying was already mentally prepared for the fact that he could no longer be the sect master of the Hidden Sword Sect. Even though his expression was rather gloomy, it was mostly relief. The new sect master. Not only does the sect master of the Hidden Sword Sect need to be capable, he also needs to be powerful. The force behind him can't be too weak either, or even with the support of the great elder of the Qingsu ruins, it'll be extremely difficult for him to carry out some of his orders in the sect. Finally, after all these considerations, the most suitable person to take over the position of sect master is the Lord of the Iron Jade Peak, Zhou Zuanyu. He hasn't been working with the senior uncles all these years, and before Xiao Luiying could introduce Zhou Zuanyu's contributions and achievements in the past few decades, Xing Hui shook his head. Zhou Zuanyu won't do. Find someone else. Investigate this matter properly before you tell me. There's no need to rush. Xiao Luiying didn't know why Xing Hui rejected Zhou Zuanyu immediately, but he still nodded. The Hidden Sword Peak belonged to the sect master's faction. Their influence was much stronger than the Divine Grace Chamber of Commerce. With the cooperation of the Hidden Sword Peak, the internal strife caused by Su Ran and Zhong Xian, the two direct disciples of the Hidden Sword Venerable, had been quelled. It had to be quelled. When everyone found out that Supreme Elder Xing Hui, who was appointed by Hidden Sword Supreme, was actually a powerful being who cultivated a god art, they instantly lost their will to resist. The difference between a powerful being and a golden core cultivator was known to the world. Even if those top gold core experts were able to escape from the hands of an almighty being, they would be able to brag about it for a few years. The fame of that gold core expert would also be able to spread throughout the world and be known by the world. If those top golden core cultivators were like this, then ordinary golden core cultivators like them and those who were even weaker than golden core cultivators wouldn't be able to do anything. Under such circumstances, the following matters progressed surprisingly smoothly. One by one, the mountains quickly confessed their mistakes. Those mountains that had infringed upon the interests of the sect also tried to find ways to fill the hole that they had dug with their own hands. In a moment, the atmosphere of the entire Hidden Sword Sect became clear. Not just the Hidden Sword Sect, The entire Hidden Sword continent was like this. After finding out that Hidden Sword Supreme had entrusted a powerful being to guard the Hidden Sword continent, those large and small chaos organizations that had interfered with the Hidden Sword continent's affairs all disappeared without a trace and quickly withdrew from the Hidden Sword continent. After all, no one could easily go against a powerful being. Even if they sent down their clones that carried the god art seeds, it was no exception. Without the support of these chaotic organizations, those small and medium-sized sects naturally did not dare to go against the Hidden Sword sect. One after another, they sent their envoys to present generous gifts and return the resource points that they had seized from the Hidden Sword sect intact. They were afraid that the Hidden Sword sect would take action to deal with them after they had finished reorganizing the internal affairs of their sects, bringing disaster to their sections. The entire Hidden Sword continent could be said to have calmed down under the pressure of Tsing Hui alone. Such a change allowed Tsing Hui to experience the influence of a powerful being in the divine wilderness. Chapter 521. Almighty. Tsing Hui himself was not an almighty, but at this moment, the great influence brought about by an almighty made him feel the weight of these three words. It should be known that the entire Hidden Sword continent had close to 100 experts in the Golden Core realm. As for those below the Golden Core realm, there were thousands of them in the Never-Ending realm, Transformative realm, and True Energy realm. In addition, there were countless experts in the Prominent Divine realm who could become supreme elders in the 9 great sacred sects in the Eastern Wilderness. If a war really broke out between the Hidden Sword continent and the Eastern Wilderness, it would be very difficult for the Eastern Wilderness to withstand the attacks of the Hidden Sword continent for even a day. However, such a powerful continent had been mistaken for an almighty simply because he had displayed battle prowess that was not inferior to an almighty. The many conflicts and hidden dangers that existed in the continent had been resolved so easily. A few, or even a dozen, forces that were supported by medium-sized and large-scale chaos organizations had quietly retreated, not daring to meet him again. As for the peak lords and great elders of the sect, they had either fled in fright and fled from the Hidden Sword continent, or they had voluntarily come to the courtyard of Qing Su to admit their mistakes and beg for forgiveness. There was not a single person who was truly bold enough to resist this kind of influence. He had crossed a realm and separated the 4th and 5th Saint realm, forming a huge gap between them. However, thinking about the number of almighties in this world and the difficulty of advancing from the Golden Core realm to the Transcendent realm, Tsing Hui could vaguely understand. He had a strong foundation, and once he formed the Golden Core, it would be a superior-grade Golden Core. However, in order to cultivate a superior-grade Golden Core, he had to spend a huge amount of resources. As for cultivating a superior-grade Golden Core, the amount of resources required to cultivate a peerless Golden Core was uncountable. Even though he was a rank 51 Son of Chaos, it would take him a few decades to accumulate such a huge amount of Taoist aura. However, this amount of resources was only enough for him to cultivate a supreme-grade Golden Core. In fact, this Golden Core only reached the perfected realm after fusing with the Torch Dragon bloodline. As for breaking through to the Sovereign Golden Core and cultivating the Sovereign Golden Core to the perfected realm, God knew how much resources he would have to spend. Just thinking about it for a moment made Qing Su feel like he could only shrink back. If not for the fact that he was unwilling to give up, he would have wanted to take advantage of the perfect Golden Core to derive a divine ability. Anyway, with his current peerless Golden Core level, he would definitely be able to derive a divine ability. There was even a high probability of him deriving a great divine ability. With such a foundation, even heaven's 10 great prodigies could not be compared to him. After all, most of the 10 prodigies of the heavenly way had high-grade Golden Cores. There were even cultivators who had condensed regular Golden Cores. It was only because they were young and possessed impressive talent that they were listed as the 10 prodigies. Cultivators like Qing Su, who had a supreme-grade Golden Core complete, were completely capable of crushing the 10 prodigies of the heavenly way. It turns out that the current me can already be considered a true top-notch expert. Qing Su muttered to himself in the courtyard of the Divine Grace Merchant Guild as he watched the Hidden Sword continent rise. The first chaos organization he had joined was Heaven's Vault, and Heaven's Vault was one of the top forces in the entire divine wilderness world. In terms of overall battle strength, it was slightly better than the 1 hall, 3 sects, 6 schools, and 9 gates. After joining such a force, he had caught the eye of Master Zhang and was almost taken in as a disciple by Master Zhu Zhao. He even had some friendship with Master Zhang, and all the people he came into contact with were all top invincible figures. Naturally, he did not have much pride in his strength. But now that he thought about it, Master Zhu Zhao and Master Zhang, what kind of existences were they? They were invincible giants of the divine realm. Every top faction only had 2 or 3, or even 1 or 2 existences. Any one of them could establish a huge faction on the level of the 1 hall, 3 sects, 6 religions, 9 gates, or even the 10 great chaos organizations. They were the pioneers of the divine wilderness world's cultivation world. As for Master Zhang, he was also an extremely ancient existence. Although he had not stepped into the divine realm, he was probably one of the top figures in the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth. Because he came into contact with such a high level, he was in a trance and did not know that he had reached the top level. If one were to compare it to the official system of the Hua nation on earth, the Almighties could be compared to the existence of high-ranking officials. They were like the existence of provincial high-ranking officials and were out-and-out great officials of the border. And compared to Earth, how many times was the entire divine wilderness world? In other words, even if their positions were the same, the power and influence of Almighties were countless times greater than the high-ranking officials of Hua nation on Earth. It was no wonder that Venerable Hidden Sword could sit on the entire Hidden Sword continent and accumulate so much wealth when he was just an almighty. According to the rules, an almighty can treat the continent he came from as his private territory. Although the Eastern Wilderness's Taoist rhyme production cannot be compared to Hidden Sword, it is still one of the medium-sized continents with higher production. In a year, the total production is estimated to be about 150 Taoist rhymes. Xing Hui thought to himself as he measured his current strength, it was time to go back and completely end the situation of the 9 Saint clans in the Eastern Wilderness. He even had to meet with the Sword Shadow's higher-ups who meddled in this continent and have a good chat with them so that they would voluntarily withdraw from the Eastern Wilderness. From now on, the Eastern Wilderness would only belong to him. It just so happens that Tan Tai Yin told me that there's a cross-sea merchant association called Oven in the Eastern Wilderness. I'll go to the Eastern Wilderness and solve these 2 problems once and for all. Xing Hui summoned Su Xiao as he spoke. Grand Supreme Elder. After witnessing Xing Hui's terrifying almighty combat strength with her own eyes, Su Xiao did not dare to be as casual in front of Xing Hui as before. She bowed respectfully. Yes, I have to leave the Hidden Sword continent for a while. However, it won't take too long, probably a month or 2. Although there are many trivial matters in the Hidden Sword continent during this period, Xiao Luiying should be able to handle them properly. If there is something that can't be handled, I can just stay here temporarily and deal with it when I return to the Hidden Sword continent. Leave the Hidden Sword continent? A month or 2? Su Xiao was slightly stunned and could not understand. How could he leave the Hidden Sword continent in a month or 2? You can't imagine the means of a high-level son of chaos. Anyway, it's good that you understand. If there is anything urgent, let Su Yuan contact me and I will return immediately. Yes. When Su Xiao heard this, it was not good to refuse, so she could only agree. That's all for now. You may leave. Grand Supreme Elder, should we tell the sect leader about this and let him send some people to follow Grand Supreme Elder to deal with some trivial matters? Yes. Xing Hui pondered for a while. Considering that he was going to the Eastern Wilderness to unify it, he finally nodded. Then let Xiao Luiying come over. At the same time, bring a few Golden Core Realm cultivators and a dozen Eternal Realm cultivators. Unifying the Eastern Wilderness was one aspect of this force, and another aspect was related to the Oven Chamber of Commerce. These chambers of commerce were different from the Eastern Wilderness. Many chambers of commerce were actually bandits in the guise of chambers of commerce. If they sensed that the continent was weak and did not have any terrifying backing, their transactions would immediately turn into plunder. This was not the first time such a thing had happened in the various continents of the divine wilderness. After Su Xiao passed the news to Xiao Luing brought 4 golden core realm cultivators, 10 eternal realm cultivators, and 30 transcendent realm and true energy realm cultivators over. After knowing that they were here to help Grand Supreme Elder Tsing Hui, these golden core realm, eternal realm, transcendent realm, and true energy realm cultivators were all very enthusiastic. Especially those who did not participate when Xiao Luing was dealing with Su Ran and the others. They urgently needed to use this battle to prove their loyalty to the Hidden Sword sect and prevent Tsing Hui from investigating them. After all, Xiao Luing did not care about the sect for the past few decades, and Hidden Sword Venerable was suspected to have passed away. The entire Hidden Sword sect was in chaos. Under such circumstances, other than ambitious people like Zhou Zunyu, there was almost no one who was truly innocent. The Hidden Sword Peak was no exception. Great Elder Qing Su, may I ask if this is enough? If it's not enough, I'll call for more people immediately. Xiao Luing bowed respectfully to Tsing Hui. Yes. Tsing Hui's gaze swept across the Hidden Sword Peak elders one by one. I brought you this time because there are some small matters that I need you to take care of when the time comes. There won't be any terrifying enemies, but in the meantime, I need to put you all into my personal space. Personal space? Xiao Luing and the others all had different levels of Chaotic Realm cultivators and had heard of the various characteristics of Chaotic Realm cultivators. Now that they heard Tsing Hui wanted to put them into his personal space, they suddenly thought of something and couldn't help but be shocked. Holding living people. Grand Supreme Elder Tsing Hui, that's a level 10 personal space? That's right. Tsing Hui nodded and looked at the Hidden Sword Peak elders. He waved his hand and layers of ripples spread out. All right, you all can enter. Seeing that Tsing Hui's personal space could really hold living things, the elders were shocked and curious at the same time. They stepped into Tsing Hui's personal space with curiosity. In the Chaos Shrine, they had entered other people's personal spaces before, but this was the first time they had entered someone else's personal space with their real body. Headmaster Xiao, this time I should be back in a month or 2. I hope that by the time I return to Hidden Sword Continent, the problems on Hidden Sword Continent will have been cleaned up and everything will be fine again. Xiao Luing said seriously. Don't worry, Grand Supreme Elder Tsing Hui, I've been the Hidden Sword Sect headmaster for over 100 years. It's time for me to do something for the sect to atone for my sins. Otherwise, how can I be worthy of the resources that I've squandered for over 100 years? Then I'll wait and see. With that, Qing Su stopped talking to Xiao Luing. He directly used the avatar technique to sense the body of the person in the Wondrous Mountains. Afterwards, he used the avatar technique, and with the ability of his personal space to store living things, he vanished from Su Xiao and Xiao Luing's vision before long. Chapter 522. The Furnace Chamber of Commerce. It was a first-class chamber of commerce from the large continent, the Meteorite Iron Continent. It was rumored that it was supported by the top forces of the continent. Every continent that could be called a large continent had at least 10 powerful beings. Some of the continents even had hidden invincible beings who were stronger than the powerful beings. For example, the headquarters of Sword Shadow, one of the top 10 organizations of chaos, were located on several large continents. Although no one knew which continent their real headquarters were located on, the power they possessed in the continents they occupied was enough to make any top sect of Heaven Wasteland take notice of them. Some of the top forces that could dominate a large continent were so powerful that they could contend with the forces of the 1 hall, 3 sects, 6 religions, and 9 gates. The Meteorite Iron Continent was not one of the top large continents and could not be compared to the top forces of the Infinite Wasteland domain. However, there were still more than 10 powerful beings on the continent. Due to a meteorite that fell from the sky, the mineral resources on the continent mutated and produced many top ores that could be used to forge divine weapons. This made the continent full of powerful experts and sections. With the secret support of the top sects and the chaos organizations, the situation on the continent was no less complicated than that of the Eastern Wasteland domain. However, compared to the Eastern Wasteland domain, the overall level of the meteorite iron continent was undoubtedly much higher. At this moment, in the control room of the Furnace Chamber of Commerce's battleship called Iron Eagle, Captain Wei Xian, Elder Bailey Fidi, Senior Deacon Gaia, Yu Dong, and Yu Feng were gathered together to discuss a plan to deal with the Eastern Wasteland domain. Elder Bailey, Captain, we found out that there are not many Dao-carrying items left in the Eastern Wasteland domain. 2 years ago, a man named Xing Hui used the power of his divine battle body to sweep across the continent. He forced many sects on the continent to hand over all the Dao-carrying auras they had accumulated over the years to him. Therefore, we rushed to the Eastern Wasteland domain as soon as we could to make a fortune on this continent. Gaia's voice carried a hint of anger and reluctance. No more Dao-carrying auras? We came here from the meteorite iron continent as fast as we could and offered a 6th-level divine weapon for 1 Dao-carrying aura, which is already beyond the previous average price. We wanted to make a fortune on the Eastern Wasteland domain, but you're telling me that there are no more Dao-carrying auras on the Eastern Wasteland domain? Bailey Fidi's face was filled with anger. Elder, please calm down. Although the Eastern Wilderness doesn't have enough Taoist items to trade, it's not necessarily true that there isn't any Taoist rhyme left in this continent. At this time, another senior manager, Yu Dongyi, pointed out. If you have something to say it. In fact, the reason why we haven't been able to get enough Dao-carrying items is because there aren't many of them left in the Eastern Wilderness. On the other hand, it's because of the existence of a special power called Qinglan Peak. This power was created by the transformative state cultivator who swept across the Eastern Wilderness 2 years ago. Its existence has intimidated the other sects in the Eastern Wilderness and made them afraid to trade with us. On the other hand, from time to time, they would release some precious materials from this mountain. These materials are expensive and are treasures that cultivators urgently need. Although the prices are not as high as what we are offering, they are not cheap either. If they trade with us, they won't profit much and will offend Qinglan Peak. Under such circumstances, no one would take the risk. Yu Dongyi said. There's another problem, and that's where we are docked. Yu Feng added, the place where we are docked is overseas. The foreign merchants will not enter the mainland, and will not have any conflicts with the mainland forces. This is an unspoken rule that everyone has tacitly agreed upon. This is to avoid causing hostility and rejection from the other forces in the mainland, which would make the following business difficult. But the problem is that the large forces in the Eastern Wilderness who have the qualifications to trade with us have been plundered by most of their Taoist treasures. The remaining small and medium-sized forces do not dare to step overseas to trade with us at all. Therefore, overseas is the place where the mysterious transformative state expert who opened up Qinglan Peak made his fortune. This place can be said to be his private territory, and it is impregnable under his management. Anyone who goes overseas to trade with us will be hated by these overseas forces. When the time comes, once we leave, they will choose to settle the score. Those small and medium-sized forces will definitely be severely punished. Bailey Fidi heard this and vaguely understood something. Her right hand unconsciously knocked on the table. So, the biggest problem with our Iron Eagle deal is this force called Qinglan Peak? Is it because of their obstruction that we have to return empty-handed on this trip? That's right. Otherwise, after 2 years, my vitality has recovered a little. Let's not talk about how much there is in the Eastern Wasteland, but at least 100 or 200 Taoist rhymes can be obtained. Gaia said honestly. Then, what are you waiting for? It's just a small medium-sized continent where the strongest cultivator is only at the Eternal Realm. Do you still need me to teach you how to do things? Whoever dares to stop us from doing business, we'll crush them. But my lord, there's a mysterious cultivator behind Qinglan Peak. I suspect that he's the disciple of Master Zhu Zhao. I'm afraid. The disciple of the Sky Dome Realm's almighty Zhu Zhao? Bailey Fidi was slightly taken aback and quickly frowned. After a while, her eyebrows relaxed again. Master Zhu Zhao has been targeted by the Heavenly Tao recently and can't even protect himself. Master Zhu Zhao has no time to deal with these trivial matters. Besides, we're not going to do it ourselves. The people from the Great Furnace Chamber of Commerce are all businessmen with clean backgrounds. The ones who robbed Qinglan Peak are just pirates. Pirates, do you understand? Gai Ya and the rest immediately understood and smiled. We understand. We'll do it now. You don't have to go. Just as Gai Ya and the rest were about to leave and gather their forces to disguise as pirates to rob Qinglan Peak and even uproot this power, a voice came directly from the outside of the large warship. Who's there? Bailey Feedy's face changed when she heard this voice. She immediately rushed out of the control room, followed by the rest of the deacons and captains. When they reached the deck, they heard someone shouting as if they were facing a great enemy. In front of them, led by Tsing Hui, 4 golden core stage cultivators, dozens of never-ending stage and transcendent stage cultivators slowly descended from the sky and landed on the deck. Bailey Feedy's expression turned serious when she saw that there were 4 golden elixir stage cultivators in this group. She looked at them warily and asked, "May I know who you are and why are you trespassing on my Great Furnace Merchant Guild's battleship? You're all discussing how to uproot my power on this continent, but you don't know who I am?" Tsing Hui stared coldly at Bailey Feedy. Bailey Feedy's cultivation level was the highest among them, at the Golden Core stage. She was also the elder of the Great Furnace Chamber of Commerce. Naturally, she was the leader of the group. Uproot your power on this continent. You're Tsing Hui, one of the founders of Qinglan Peak? The transcendent stage cultivator who swept through the Eastern Wilderness and took all the treasures of the Eastern Wilderness. Bailey Feedy suddenly thought of something. She glanced at the Golden Core stage cultivators, never-ending stage and transcendent stage cultivators that Tsing Hui brought with him. She forced a smile on her face. It was a misunderstanding. We were just talking nonsense. Please don't take it to heart, Mr. Tsing Hui. Is that so? I only believe what I hear. Since the Great Furnace Chamber of Commerce intends to uproot Qinglan Peak, then don't blame us for striking first. After Tsing Hui finished speaking, he waved his hand at the 4 Golden Core stage cultivators and dozens of never-ending stage and transcendent stage cultivators behind him. Wait, wait! Bailey Feedy hurriedly shouted. Peace breeds wealth, peace breeds wealth. Mr. Tsing Hui, let's talk nicely. There's no need to resort to violence. The Great Furnace Chamber of Commerce was in the wrong first. Fortunately, we haven't committed any grave mistakes. If there's anything we shouldn't do, we're willing to compensate. There's no need for that. After I'm done with you, all the treasures on you will naturally belong to me. As Tsing Hui spoke, he glanced at the crowd behind him from the corner of his eye. What are you waiting for? Yes, Elder. The Golden Core stage, never-ending stage, and transcendent stage cultivators immediately rushed forward. Without any hesitation, they chose their opponents and charged towards the never-ending stage and transcendent stage cultivators. In an instant, the battle forms manifested one after another. A mighty aura filled the entire area, stirring up the yuan qi of heaven and earth in a radius of 100 kilometers. Even the surface of the sea was stirred up by this surge of yuan qi. The waves grew more and more intense until it became a tsunami. Bastard! Tsing Hui, are you really going to kill us all? Our Great Furnace Chamber of Commerce is backed by one of the 8 giants of the meteorite continent, the Divine Smelting Sect. Moreover, the meteorite continent is only 10 million kilometers away from your East Baron. If you destroy one of our caravans here, we won't let this matter rest. Don't think that Tianqiong can protect you. Tianqiong is like a clay Buddha crossing a river. He can't even protect himself. At this critical moment, he won't offend the Divine Smelting Sect for you. I'd like to know if the Divine Smelting Sect will offend us for the sake of a fleet of your Great Furnace Chamber of Commerce. As soon as Tsing Hui finished speaking, the Golden Core stage, never-ending stage, and transcendent stage cultivators no longer hesitated. They quickly clashed with the experts of the Great Furnace Chamber of Commerce. Although the Great Furnace Chamber of Commerce had quite a number of experts, including a Golden Core stage cultivator like Bailey Feedy, they were still inferior to the experts of the Hidden Sword sect that Xiao Feiying had specially selected. This was especially so for the Golden Core and never-ending stage cultivators. Each of them was eager to show off in front of Tsing Hui. they attacked with all their might. In just a few moments, they had already suppressed the Great Furnace Chamber of Commerce. It was only a matter of time before this caravan was completely destroyed. Wang Wang. At this moment, a vast energy suddenly descended from the sky. Following that, the yuan qi of heaven and earth within a radius of 100 kilometers gathered crazily towards a single point in the center. Not long after, a powerful aura that was not inferior to that of a golden core stage cultivator emanated from the condensed figure. Main Battle Avatar. A primary battle avatar at the Golden Core realm. Chapter 523. It's the Sage. It's the Shaoguang Sage. The Shaoguang Sage has responded to our call for help. He's here to save us. Bailey Feedy, Gaia, Wei Exen, and the others who had been in despair earlier could not help but cheer as they saw the figure that was condensing rapidly in the void. A golden elixir realm main combat avatar? Xing Hui looked at the man's avatar that was gradually forming in front of him. The man's aura was comparable to that of the Black Sky Taoist master. He was surprised. Did the Great Furnace Chamber of Commerce, or in other words, the Divine Refinement sect, really have nothing better to do? Not only did they send down a clone to deal with him, they even sent a Golden Core realm main clone. Qing Su found this to be very illogical. In the void, the Golden Elixir realm main combat avatar of the Shaoguang Sage did not attack immediately. Instead, he was constantly sensing something. After a while, a smile appeared on his face. Is this the change brought about by the rank 5 avatar technique? Very good. I've tried my best to send a Golden Elixir realm main combat avatar, and it only has less than a year of recovery time. As for the period of weakness, it's only 2 to 3 months. If I make a breakthrough in my cultivation and send a never-ending realm main combat avatar, the period of weakness will definitely be shortened by more than half. Sage, save us. I'm Bailey Feedy, an elder of the Divine Smelting Sect. Please help us on account of the fact that we're from the same sect and eliminate these evildoers who don't respect the Divine Smelting Sect. Bailey Feedy looked at the Shaoguang Sage, who seemed to be sensing something in the void. He did not seem to have any intention of striking out at all. She hurriedly cried out for help. In just a short while, several cultivators of the Great Furnace Trade Union had already been slain. Hearing Bailey Feedy's cry, the Shaoguang Sage in the void finally looked at the two parties who were fighting below. I've sent my avatar here personally. How dare you not surrender? You're courting death. Since you're all so stubborn, I'll take your blood as the spoils of war for my first Golden Elixir realm avatar. The Shaoguang Sage's gaze swept across the crowd. When he found that there were only 4 Golden Elixir realm cultivators, his expression turned cold. However, before he could attack the 4 Golden Elixir realm cultivators, Xing Hui's body flashed and stood in front of the Shaoguang Sage. These people from the Great Furnace Chamber of Commerce have the audacity to attack Qinglan Peak and intended to destroy it. If I hadn't arrived in time, Qinglan Peak. I'm afraid Qinglan Peak would have been destroyed. That's why they have to pay for what they've done today. They must pay for what they've done. If I hadn't arrived here in time, the peak would have been destroyed is for them to pay. For today, they must pay for what they. For them, they must pay for it today. S for today. For SA. As soon as Xing Hui finished speaking, the Shaoguang Sage roared, "A mere Golden Elixir realm cultivator dares to spout nonsense in front of me. Who do you think you are? Since the Great Furnace Chamber of Commerce wants to annihilate your so-called Qinglan Peak, they naturally have their reasons to do so. Instead of surrendering obediently, you actually dared to resist. Your crimes are unforgivable. Today I shall use your blood." Clang! Before the Shaoguang Sage could finish his words, Xing Hui struck with his sword. The sword will exploded. The deep scarlet sword emitted a vast and cold pressure, like a blazing sun. The moment it formed the sword chi, it swept towards the Golden Core Stage main battle avatar of the Shaoguang Holy Master with an unstoppable force. The sharp sword light made the Shaoguang Holy Master, who had been full of awe-inspiring momentum a second ago, scream in pain. Countless holes were torn in his avatar in an instant. Damn it. The Shaoguang sage was shocked and angry. He clearly sensed that Xing Hui's aura should be in the golden elixir realm. However, he never expected that a single strike from Xing Hui could form such a vast and brilliant sword light. The sword light was like a falling sun. The power it carried was not inferior to a divine ability blasted out by a divine ability expert. It shattered his golden elixir realm avatar on the spot. How dare you injure my avatar? The divine refining clan will not let this go. The Shaoguang sage roared angrily. He quickly escaped from the sword light that Xing Hui had slashed out. After he shouted angrily, he wanted to withdraw his avatar immediately to prevent it from dying here. I've said that I gave you a chance to leave. Then don't leave. Xing Hui took a step forward and used the supreme immortal technique reversal of yin and yang. For a moment, the nomological laws and vitality in the void were all stirred up. Even the avatar technique was seriously affected, let alone the aura lock. The Shaoguang sage, who wanted to withdraw his avatar immediately, froze in the void and was unable to do so. What kind of technique is this? This is not good. Stop. The Shaoguang sage's expression changed drastically and he hurriedly shouted. Unfortunately, Xing Hui was no longer in the mood to talk nonsense with him. In the next moment, the Scarlet Abyss sword slashed down again. This golden elixir realm avatar, which was only slightly inferior to the Black Heaven sect master's avatar in terms of strength, was like a piece of tofu that was cut by countless wind blades. It was instantly crushed into powder by the sharp sword light formed by the second strike. It didn't even have time to scream before it collapsed on the spot. Sage! Bailey Feedy, who had placed high hopes on the Shaoguang sage's avatar, was stunned when she saw the Shaoguang sage's avatar being killed instantly. Not only her, but Wei Exin, Gaia, and the others who were still fighting back screamed in despair, "Divine power! Divine power! That's a divine power! This Xing Hui is an almighty! He's not a transcendent realm cultivator like the rumors say. He's a supreme almighty who has derived a divine power." Almighty! Bailey Feedy's face turned pale when she heard the desperate screams of Wei Exin, Gaia, and the others. I should have known. There are a large number of never-ending realm, transcendent realm, and true energy realm experts in the Eastern Wilderness. How could a mere transcendent realm expert with a divine-grade battle body sweep across the entire Eastern Wilderness and subdue all the other sacred sects? An almighty, or at least in the Golden Core realm. Only an expert in the Golden Core realm has the possibility of suppressing the Eastern Wasteland continent by himself. After that, he returned to the Heaven Wasteland continent, and under the guidance of the invincible giant in the Sky Vault, esteemed Zhu Zhao, he developed a divine ability and stepped into the realm of Almighty. This is the truth. This is the truth of the matter. It's funny that I actually believed that there really was an expert in the transcendent realm who could easily subdue the Eastern Wasteland continent. Xing Hui didn't care about Bailey Feedy's despair. Since he had already attacked, he didn't intend to stand by and watch. The deep red sword vibrated slightly. He was about to kill this divine refining sect elder on the spot. But right at this moment, Bailey Feedy shuddered and suddenly woke up. She hurriedly shouted, "Lord Qing Su, please stay your hand. I beg Lord Xing Hui to spare me. I'm willing to use all the Dao-carrying items I've accumulated in my life to beg Lord Xing Hui to spare my life." Qing Su's gaze landed on Bailey Feedy. "If I don't kill you directly, I only need to capture you alive, and I'll be able to force out everything in your personal space, including your chaotic method." Bailey Feedy's eyes turned cold. The next moment, she took advantage of the fact that Xing Hui hadn't attacked immediately to take out an elixir and swallow it without hesitation. "I just swallowed a heart-severing pill. If I don't take the antidote in an hour, I will die from the poison." When Bailey Feedy said this, her eyes were filled with bitterness. "Over the years, I've accumulated 34 Dao-carrying items. If Lord Xing Hui is willing to spare my life, I'm willing to give all the 34 Dao-carrying items to Lord." At this moment, Wei Exin, Gaia, and the others, who were in a precarious situation, also shouted, "We are also willing to redeem our lives." We are also willing to use the Tao-carrying items to redeem our lives. Lord Tsing Hui, according to the rules of the divine wilderness, if the enmity between two parties isn't so great that it will only end in death, the captured party has the right to take out their Tao-carrying items to redeem their lives. Although we have the intention to harm Elder Tsing Hui's Qing Lan Mountain, we have not taken any action. Strictly speaking, Lord Tsing Hui has not suffered any injuries. The enmity between us is far from being irreconcilable. We beg Lord Tsing Hui to give us a way out. Among them, Gai Ya, who was more agile, immediately stepped forward and took out a dozen Tao carrier items. These are all the Tao carrier items I have on me. If I miss anything, I'm willing to be struck by lightning. Wei Xian Yufeng and the others saw this and also offered up their Tao carrying items. Tsing Hui swept his gaze over these Tao carrying items one by one. As the upper echelons of the Great Furnace Chamber of Commerce who were in charge of trading across the sea, every single one of them possessed extraordinary wealth. Every single one of them had quite a few Taoist charms on them. When all of them were added together, they had a total of 114 Taoist charms. This number had truly exceeded Qing Su's expectations. It must be known that the Divine Grace Chamber of Commerce had only accumulated about 200 Tao-carrying items over the countless years. The Tao-carrying items collected by these people were already close to half of the Divine Grace Chamber of Commerce's total. If one were to add in the various scattered resources on the Iron Eagle ship, Tsing Hui looked at these people and thought about it. Bailey Feedy looked at Tsing Hui uneasily. His heart was filled with fear. After a while, he seemed to have thought of something and suddenly said, "That's right, Lord Tsing Hui. I still have a secret, a huge secret. If Lord Tsing Hui is willing to let me go, I am willing to tell this secret to Lord Tsing Hui." "Oh, tell me about it." This information is related to our Divine Refinement sect's enemy, the Arcane Art sect. When I was following our Divine Refinement sect's Dark North Saint to attack a base of the Arcane Art sect, we discovered a huge secret of the Arcane Art sect. The Arcane Art sect actually found the refining method of the ancient Scarlet Sun cult's signature alchemy puppet, the Scarlet Sun demonic god. Moreover, they are already trying their best to collect the refining materials. Once the Arcane Art sect succeeds, they will be able to create a terrifying war puppet equivalent to the astronomical phenomenon of Earth. They will become the most powerful sect on the meteorite iron continent. Chapter 524. Red Sun Devil God? Tsing Hui's heart skipped a beat. An embodiment of heaven and earth level alchemy puppet? Because it was just an alchemy puppet, the Red Sun demonic god was not as agile as a real celestial being of heaven and earth. However, it didn't have the initial phase when a real celestial being of heaven and earth entered the state of celestial being of heaven and earth. Also, if it was controlled by someone, the shortcomings of the Red Sun demonic god's flexibility and lack of logic could be significantly improved. Even if it couldn't fight against a real celestial being of heaven and earth, it could still be used to deal with a divine-level powerful figure. This is the most powerful weapon that the Scarlet Sun cult used to sweep across the entire meteorite iron continent 3,000 years ago. If it wasn't for the fact that the Scarlet Sun cult's main material was the core of the Great Sun, which could only be produced by the Primal Chaos Treasure Pavilion, which limited the production of the Scarlet Sun cult, I'm afraid that the Scarlet Sun cult would have already swept across the meteorite iron continent and become the one and only supreme overlord of the meteorite iron continent. The Sun Core. Tsing Hui remembered that there was a Sun Core hanging in his Chaos Treasure Pavilion. However, due to its high price and the fact that it was too wasteful to use the energy in the Sun Core for cultivation, he might have already bought it. However, if he could get an embodiment of heaven and earth level war puppet for 300 Taoist rhymes, it was definitely worth it. Your information is somewhat useful. Considering the weight of this information, leave your chaos incantations and I can spare your lives. Tsing Hui said. Chaos incantations? I don't believe that other than offering enough Taoist rhymes to redeem your lives, the other party will also keep your chaos incantation. Moreover, if you don't hand over the chaos incantation, how can I determine whether you have handed over all your Taoist items? As for the things you might have in your personal space, just leave them on the deck. Anyway, this battleship is not small. Bailey Fidi, Gaia, Wei Xian and the others looked at each other and finally handed over their chaos incantations to Tsing Hui. Tsing Hui spent some time to verify them one by one and nodded. The primal chaos incantation is real. I can spare your lives. When Bailey Fidi and the others heard this, they immediately let out a sigh of relief. However, before he had time to completely relax, Tsing Hui's next words once again made him reveal an uncontrollable panic. However, although I can spare your lives, your attempt to destroy my Qinglan Peak will not be so simple. I will abolish your cultivation as a punishment. With that, Qing Su did not give these people a chance to react at all. The light on his body shot out rapidly, turning into thousands of blurs and shooting into the bodies of the cultivators of the Great Furnace Chamber of Commerce at the same time, destroying their meridians and energy cores wantonly. No. Amidst a series of screams filled with anger and unwillingness, the surviving senior executives of the Great Furnace Chamber of Commerce had their cultivation base crippled at the same time. Their faces were all pale. Some of the older cultivators who relied on true qi to maintain their vitality were aging at a speed visible to the naked eye. You actually crippled our cultivation. Why, if you are not satisfied with this result, I can send you on your way. The upper echelons of the Great Furnace Chamber of Commerce, who were originally filled with resentment and unwillingness, immediately shivered in fright when they saw the killing intent in Qing Su's eyes. They hurriedly suppressed their resentment, not daring to show any more of it. Compared to losing their lives, simply abolishing their cultivation base was the best result. After all, every single one of them had attained the transformative realm, the endless realm, and even the golden core realm in the past. Their bodies had been strengthened by the energy of these realms of cultivation, so recovering to their current level of cultivation was nothing more than spending sufficient resources and time. However, once they became discontent and incurred Qing Su's wrath, they would be killed with a single strike of his sword. At that time, they would not even have the chance to cultivate once more. I have already taught you a lesson. If you are still here, do you want me to break your limbs? Tsing Hui's gaze swept across the crowd. Instantly, the dozen or so people panicked. Finally, as the captain of the ship, Wei Xian plucked up his courage and said, Master Tsing Hui, this battleship belongs to the Great Furnace Chamber of Commerce. Without this battleship, how are we going to return to the Great Furnace Chamber of Commerce? You speak as if you can return to the Great Furnace Chamber of Commerce with this battleship. With your cultivation base crippled, any Lord-class sea beast would be more than enough to bury you in the ocean. As for this battleship, I remember I made it clear just now. It has become my spoils of war. I'm too lazy to repeat myself. After Tsing Hui finished speaking, he turned to a golden elixir expert of the Hidden Sword sect and said, Throw them off the ship. No, we will leave on our own, we will leave on our own. Wei Xian was so frightened that he was trembling all over. He quickly shouted and ran off the Iron Eagle battleship. The battleship was docked at the port and was about 600 meters above the ground. Although each of them still had a strong physical strength, if they were thrown off from 600 meters, they would definitely be smashed into a meat patty. There was no chance of survival. After driving away all the people of the Great Furnace Chamber of Commerce, Tsing Hui sent a message to Dan Taiying and the others. Not long after, Dan Taiying and the others arrived on their swords and landed on the battleship. In addition to Dan Taiying and the others, there was also Peak Master Yuan Kong, who had completely surrendered to Qinglan Peak, Lord Zhenhai, Ling Yu and the others who were stationed overseas. These people were not considered weak in the Eastern Wilderness, but compared to Tsing Hui, whose subordinates were all at the Golden Elixir stage, they were not worth mentioning. Alright, tidy up the things on this battleship. If there's anything useful, leave it behind. When the time comes, distribute it according to your contributions. The rest can be put on the shelves of the Hunyuan Association. Although they are not very valuable, they can more or less fill up the warehouse of our Hunyuan Association. Yes, Alliance Master. Everyone answered. When they arrived, they had already seen the people of the Great Furnace Chamber of Commerce who had their cultivations crippled. They were still in disbelief that such a powerful force that could almost wipe out the entire eastern wilderness was so easily wiped out by Tsinghui. However, when they saw the few golden elixir stage experts and dozens of never-ending and transformative stage experts behind Tsinghui, they suddenly understood. Tsinghui was now the personal disciple of the supreme celestial master Zhuzhao. It was completely reasonable for Zhuzhao to send a few golden elixir stage experts to protect him. With the help of a few golden elixir stage experts and dozens of never-ending and transformative stage experts, defeating the people of the Great Furnace Chamber of Commerce was not something unacceptable. After accepting this change, everyone could not help but look at Qing Su with even more reverence. After Tsinghui gave his orders, no one dared to speak in front of him for a long time. Most of them did not even dare to breathe loudly. The current Tsinghui was no longer the same as before. Even the golden elixir stage experts, who were like true immortals and true gods in their hearts, had to listen to his orders, let alone a group of cultivators who had not even reached the saint stage. The gloomy atmosphere lasted for quite a while before Ling Yu plucked up her courage and cautiously suggested, "My lord, this battleship is obviously specially built by the Great Furnace Chamber of Commerce for navigation in the ocean. Its defense, stability, and speed are much better than other battleships. With this battleship, if we can have 3 to 5 Saint Realm experts to guard it, we may be able to trade with the nearby continents. By then, we will be able to greatly enrich the products of Qinglan Peak and the Hunyuan Chamber of Commerce. This will speed up the growth of the forces of Qinglan Peak and Hunyuan Chamber of Commerce." Oh! Tsinghui thought for a while and felt that this was a feasible idea. However, cross-sea navigation had always been dangerous. Without the protection of an unending realm expert, even with a high-grade battleship like the Iron Eagle, it was still very dangerous. Furthermore, some of the large sects on the continent saw that this caravan was not well known and did not have any experts. It was very likely that they would steal the limelight. Based on the current strength of the eastern wilderness, it was still slightly lacking. Let's put this matter on hold for now. The eastern wilderness does not have the ability to form a cross-sea caravan yet. My lord, are you worried that the strength of the guarding battleship is not enough? In fact, if you are really worried about this, you can consider the alchemy puppets. I remember that there are many powerful alchemy puppets for sale in the Heaven Wasteland domain. If there is a grand auction, there will be alchemy puppets of the golden elixir stage being taken out as the final item for people to choose from. As long as we have a golden elixir stage alchemy puppet on board the battleship, we can basically guarantee the safety of the cross-sea caravan. Alchemy puppets? Tsinghui's heart skipped a beat. The profits of cross-sea caravans were indeed not low. Usually, a single trip could yield dozens or even hundreds of Dao auras. The only problem was that the journey was long and dangerous. However, if he could really buy a golden elixir stage alchemy puppet, it would be enough to solve this small problem. As for the bigger problem, at most, he could ask the people of the caravan to send a message to him in the Chaos Divine Palace and ask him to use the incarnation technique and his personal space to solve the problem personally. He believed that with his battle strength that was not inferior to that of a powerful figure, there were not many things that could be difficult for him outside of the Heaven Wasteland domain. This method is indeed feasible. Tsinghui said to Ling Yu, "You can now start preparing for the formation of the cross-sea caravan. When the time comes, you can invite a transformative stage expert or a true energy realm expert to be the captain. As for the alchemy puppets, I will ask the people of the 6 major chambers of commerce of the Heaven Wasteland domain to start looking for them. When they can buy a golden elixir stage alchemy puppet, the caravan of the Chaos Element Chamber of Commerce can be officially established." "Yes, my lord." Ling Yu responded with some joy. At this time, the golden elixir stage expert from the Hidden Sword sect came forward and whispered, "Supreme Elder wants to buy a golden elixir stage alchemy puppet? I know where to buy it, but I don't know if there is enough time. Would you like to recommend and reward some people today to warm up?" Chapter 525. Oh, I remember you. You're Elder Duanmu Tong of the Hidden Sword Peak, right? You mean, you know where I can find golden core puppets for sale? Duan Mutong nodded. At the same time, he glanced in the direction Bailey Feedy and the others had disappeared. Supreme Elder probably doesn't know what the specialty of the meteorite iron continent is, right? Sing Hui thought of the so-called Scarlet Sun demon god of the Scarlet Sun cult. He immediately said, could it be alchemy puppets? Duan Mutong nodded seriously. There was once a meteorite that fell on the meteorite iron continent. The special radiation emitted by the meteorite swept across the entire meteorite iron continent, causing many mineral resources to mutate. As time passed, the mineral resources gradually became scarce and the meteorite iron continent could no longer produce alchemy puppets similar to the Scarlet Sun demon god. However, after countless years of accumulation, the meteorite iron continent is still the continent with the highest sales of alchemy puppets in the entire Divine Wilderness. At least 30% of the alchemy puppets in the Divine Wilderness come from the meteorite iron continent. As for golden core puppets, the meteorite iron continent accounts for 60% of them. 60%? You're talking about the meteorite iron continent? It's not so. The 8 great sects of the meteorite iron continent are at war with each other. However, they are very good at preserving the alchemy techniques of the meteorite iron continent. Therefore, the 8 great sects have formed an unwritten rule. They monopolize high-grade alchemy puppets and alchemy materials to drive up the price of alchemy puppets. For example, within the 8 great sects of the meteorite iron continent, a golden core puppet can only be sold for 100 to 120 Daos rhymes. However, in the outside world, this price can be doubled. Doubled? Sing Hui's expression was a little strange. Double the price. 200 Daos rhymes didn't seem expensive, even if a golden core puppet couldn't compare to a real golden core expert in terms of agility. Using 200 Daos rhymes to buy such a loyal war assistant, it was a good deal. Duan Mutong seemed to have guessed Sing Hui's thoughts and said, Supreme Elder thinks that the meteorite continent's alchemy puppets are too cheap? In fact, the golden core realm puppets that the 8 great sects are willing to sell have a huge drawback, and that is the energy consumption. Activating a golden core realm war puppet requires a large amount of spirit crystals, or even saint crystals. Basically, after every battle with a golden core realm expert, the cost of saint crystals is equivalent to several Taoist rhymes, or even more than 10 Taoist rhymes. Many medium-sized sects can afford golden core realm war puppets with the power of their sects, but those that can be used continuously can be counted on one hand. Qing Su nodded slightly when he heard that. This was similar to the relationship between guns and bullets, or between cars and gasoline. Although golden core stage alchemy puppets are expensive and the cost of using them is enormous, there are many times when they can still be used at critical moments. Therefore, there is a market for golden core stage alchemy puppets. Many people go to the meteorite continent to buy them. With demand, there will naturally be profits. Due to the high price of the alchemy puppets sold by the 8 great sects, over time, an industry similar to smuggling was born. Smuggling? Sing Hui's expression was a little strange. Yes, some cultivators who belong to the 8 great sects will steal golden core realm war puppets from the 8 great sects and sell them. The excess profit will naturally be counted as their own profit. Although these war puppets can't be guaranteed by the 8 great sects, the price is dozens of Taoist rhymes cheaper than the price of the 8 great sects. There is still a shortage of demand. What I'm talking about is the 3 golden core realm alchemy puppets that will be sold at a black market auction on a continent called Blazing Flame next to the meteorite continent a month later. Oh, 3 golden core realm alchemy puppets? Hearing this, Sing Hui immediately understood. A month later? Duan Mutong's tone was a little hesitant. Because I don't know when the Great Elder's incarnation technique will be weakened, I don't know if you can make it in time for this auction. Well, let's go together at that time. Sing Hui said directly, you will go with me at that time. It will be my pleasure. Duan Mutong hurriedly said. The other Golden Core Realm and Never-Ending Realm elders looked at Duan Mutong with a trace of envy. Judging from Duan Mutong's appearance, he had clearly caught the attention of the Great Elder of Qing Su. With the Great Elder of Qing Su's capabilities, how could the benefits he could obtain in the future be any less than that if he stayed by the Great Elder's side? In the future, he might even be able to condense a high-grade golden core, which would give birth to remarkable abilities and allow him to step into the almighty stage, leaving the elders far behind. Now, let's return to the Eastern Wilderness. As Qing Su said that, he glanced at the Sky Origin Peak Lord. Has the news of me coming to the Eastern Wilderness spread? It has already spread, but it hasn't been long. I'm afraid it will take some time for all the sects to know. The Sky Origin Peak Master respectfully said. Back then, he had once been enemies with Tsing Hui, but after Tsing Hui became the Hunyuan Heaven Sect's Grand Elder, he immediately made his position clear. Reality had proven that his choice was correct. Looking at Qing Su's current achievements, if he had really been stubborn back then and chosen to stand against the Great Elder of Qing Su to the end, he probably would have been reduced to ashes a long time ago, just like his previous enemies. Do we still have to wait for some time? It's best to wait for some time. As Tsing Hui spoke, his gaze swept across the remaining 3 Golden Core Realm experts. The 3 of you will each lead a team and make a trip to the Wuji Sword Sect, Chenkuan's Sacred Land and 6 Paths of Gods and Demons. Tell them to send representatives to the Wondrous Mountain Range. In addition, the people from the Faluo Sect and Giant Dragon Mountain Range will be divided into 2 teams of 5 and invite them over. The last sentence was directed to the other Never-Ending Realm and Transcendent Realm experts. Yes. Everyone respectfully answered. One of the Never-Ending Realm experts asked in confusion, Grand Elder, what if they refuse to come? Refuse to come? Tsing Hui laughed. If they refuse to come, I'll have to rely on you to think of a way. Dead or alive, it doesn't matter. In short, they must come. The Golden Core, Never-Ending Realm, and Transcendent Realm experts immediately understood. They smiled and said, Don't worry, Grand Elder Tsing Hui. I believe that they will all be present. Before dealing with the Great Furnace Chamber of Commerce, they had already used their own channels to understand the Eastern Wilderness cultivation world in detail. In the entire Eastern Wilderness, the strongest expert was only at the Never-Ending Realm, and there was only one Ancestor Stone Sword. The rest were mainly at the True Energy and Transcendent Realm. With this lineup, it would be a piece of cake for them to sweep through the Eastern Wilderness. Once you're done, we'll meet at the Wondrous Mountain Range. Tsing Hui waved his hand at them. Instantly, except for Duanmu Tong, who was not assigned a task, everyone flew up on their swords and headed towards the interior of the continent. Let's return to the Wondrous Mountain Range, Tsing Hui said. He then turned to Duanmu Tong and said, Along the way, tell me in detail about the Meteorite Iron Continent, as well as the Scarlet Sun Sect and the Scarlet Sun Demon God that have disappeared in the long river of history. Yes, Grand Elder. Duanmu Tong hurriedly replied, overwhelmed by the favor. As they talked, the group stepped onto the flying Dharma artifact and headed towards the Wondrous Mountain Range. By the time Tsing Hui arrived at the Wondrous Mountain Range, he already had a detailed understanding of the Scarlet Sun Sect and the Scarlet Sun Demon God. The Scarlet Sun Sect was the sect that had almost unified the Meteorite Iron Continent. It should be known that a large continent was different from a medium or small continent. The output of Taoist rhyme in a large continent was basically above that of a medium or small continent. Moreover, the forces entrenched in a large continent were far more powerful than the medium or small continents. This could be seen from the fact that a large continent required at least 10 almighties to oversee it. A sect that had the power to unify a large continent would at least have the battle strength to fight against 10 almighties. In other words, there had to be at least one astronomical phenomenon Earth-level expert overseeing it. Moreover, there could only be more, not less. However, even at its peak, the Scarlet Sun sect did not have any astronomical phenomenon Earth-level expert. They only had 4 almighties competing with each other. The main force that swept across the continent was the 3 Scarlet Sun Demon Gods. The 3 Scarlet Sun Demon Gods' battle strength was close to that of an astronomical phenomenon Earth-level expert. With the help of the 3 Scarlet Sun demon gods, the Scarlet Sun sect had completed the sweep. If it were not for the fact that there were too few Great Sun cores and that the Scarlet Sun sect was too arrogant and had offended an invincible divine realm expert, they would probably have been able to complete the magnificent feat of unifying the meteorite iron continent. As Tsing Hui and the others returned to the wondrous mountain range on a flying device, they saw a group of people waving banners outside to welcome them from afar. These people included the cultivators of Qinglan Peak, as well as the cultivators of the Hunyuan Heaven sect, the Green Lotus Sword sect, and even the Jinwu religion. Hundreds of cultivators gathered together with smiles on their faces and raised their heads in anticipation. In the eastern wilderness, their momentum was indeed quite great. Supreme Elder Tsing Hui. Welcome back to the eastern wilderness. As Tsing Hui appeared on the flying device, the cultivators from various sects shouted at the same time, their expressions extremely respectful. Tsing Hui nodded to these people. In the past 2 years, the wondrous mountain range had undergone a series of development. Whether it was in terms of popularity or scale, it had improved a lot compared to when Qinglan Peak was first established. If Qinglan Peak could only be regarded as a mountain peak of the Hunyuan Heaven sect before, apart from the territory and resources it occupied, it was just like an ordinary mountain peak. But now, Qinglan Peak had completely walked out of its own path and had the embryonic form of a first-class sect. Even if there were no top experts in this sect at present, as long as Tsing Hui was still alive, his influence in the eastern wilderness would still allow Qinglan Peak to flourish at a transcendent speed and posture. Tsing Hui. As Tsing Hui stepped into the main hall of Qinglan Peak, Nailan Fei and the others also came up to greet him. At the same time, the one who came up to greet him was Tang Sun, who was on good terms with Tsing Hui. Seeing Tsing Hui, Tang Sun hurriedly stepped forward and said in an apologetic tone, "Supreme Elder, Hunyuan Saint has comprehended an opportunity to break through to the never-ending stage and is currently in closed-door cultivation. He has reached the most critical moment, so he can't come out to greet you. Please forgive him, Supreme Elder." It doesn't matter. Hunyuan Saint has a chance to break through to the never-ending stage. I will congratulate the Hunyuan Heaven sect first. Tsing Hui said with a smile. Thank you for your kind words, Supreme Elder. Tang Sun bowed slightly. As Tsing Hui's identity had changed again and again, the Grand Elder of the Hunyuan Heaven sect no longer dared to talk casually in front of him like before. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.